Today's guest is an expert on cover-ups, secret histories, and conspiracy theories that might just be true.
But what's more disturbing about the CIA is really the pattern. The laws don't really apply to us. We'll do it until we get caught. Then we'll just do it quieter. Then we'll just destroy the evidence and we'll keep doing it.
A boy from the Bronx, he grew up listening to his cop father's overnight radio, where he first heard stories of alien abductions and the paranormal.
I just know something came to my room at night. I saw lots of lights, and now I have a bump under my skin that my doctors don't know what's in there.
But after spending 20 years writing the secret software that the US Congress runs on, he began documenting the world of unsolved mysteries, growing his channel to 6 million subscribers with the help of his cartoon fish.
Some of these folks are definitely being monitored. I doubt I am. I don't think anyone cares about the guy with the fish, but the NSA coordinates with all the mobile providers, so we're being watched every second.
In this episode, we'll unveil the conspiracies he failed to debunk, expose the ones he believes now but can't quite yet prove, and question if everything he's saying is true, then what are the things even he is too afraid to say? Do you think the government ever creates fake conspiracy theories?
All the time.
To confuse people?
Yes. I think a lot of what we're seeing in disclosure is just a distraction. If UFOs are real, I'm pretty sure they are, it might have something to do with...
AJ Gentile. Welcome to the Jack Neel Podcast.
That's an intimidating intro. Okay. Good to be happy to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time, man. Yeah. A good place to start here. AJ, on your show, The Why Files, you spend the first 2/3 of your episode telling a story like it's true, and the last third completely debunking it. I want to talk to you about the stories you couldn't debunk, the ones you think could be true, and the ones you know are nothing but true. In 2007, the CIA was forced to declassify a 700-page file of its own crimes. Assassination plots, spying on journalists, giving Americans hallucinogenic drugs. You covered it and said the thing you almost never say. Everything in this episode is true. What do you think is the most disturbing thing that the CIA has admitted to doing?
Probably MK Ultra. MK Ultra, for those who don't know, I think everybody knows that Congress just reopened hearings on MK Ultra, is the CIA giving hallucinogenic drugs like LSD to people who didn't know they were being drugged. They would give it to businessmen at brothels and like videotape what was going on and all kinds of people. That one is disturbing because of all those CIA programs, a lot of it's about just American power, which I get it. I'm American. But MK Ultra was about treating people as disposable. I mean, it's even in the documents that they call them expendables. That's kind of gross. And nobody signed up for any of that. But what's more disturbing about the CIA is really the pattern. Sort of a pattern of, the laws don't really apply to us. We'll do it until we get caught. Then we'll just do it quieter. Then we'll just destroy the evidence and we'll keep doing it.
I guess on MK Ultra specifically, like, what do you think is a specific part of that story, those documents, that you don't hear a lot of people talking about that you found particularly captivating?
I don't think it's covered enough that most of the documents were destroyed. But when I think it was probably started during the church hearings, which would be like 73, 74, where Sidney Gottlieb, he's known as like the dark sorcerer of the CIA. He ran MK Ultra, about 150 sub-projects across 80 universities and 12 corporations. He was a pretty powerful guy. He had all those documents destroyed and never answered for any of it. He retired peacefully. He went to some rural area and ended up like breeding goats and had a nice retirement and pension that we paid for. And, he should have died in prison.
And what do you suspect that they were trying to find? Because I don't think a lot of people touch on that part. They propose theories, but...
A few different things. Because like I said, there's like 150 to 180 sub-projects. So you have, it was really about using chemicals to see if we can influence human behavior. So that you'd have maybe a sleeper assassin that if you can trigger him to kill somebody, maybe even against his will. So that would also go into mind control. But there's also manipulation and interrogation. Like, what kind of drugs make people open up and just tell the truth? What kind of drugs can we give them to make them lie? If you can give an agent a drug where he doesn't even know he's lying, he's just telling, like if he's being interrogated, that's good stuff. So there's really all those different avenues of just trying to control human consciousness through chemicals.
Right. Of every crime the CIA is admitted to in writing, which one do you think should scare Americans today?
A lot of the biowarfare stuff is pretty scary. Things like Operation Sea Spray, where they just put a bunch of bacteria all over San Francisco just to see what would happen. They did the same thing in the New York subways just to see what would happen. Actually, the CIA officer who ran Sea-Spray it was Frank Olson, ended up on a city sidewalk in New York. He fell from a 10-story window that was about that big. I don't know if you know his story, but yeah, it's working for the CIA. So Frank Olson was a scientist specialized in biowarfare. Aerosol sprays was his deal. And so he was part of Operation Sea-Spray. So he transitioned from military to civilian. CIA. He's working for Sidney Gottlieb eventually, and part of the MK Ultra program. And he started to have kind of a crisis of consciousness. He just didn't want to do this anymore. So he checks in with Gottlieb and his supervisors, and they say, maybe you just need to break. You're stressed out. You come out to the cabin. The CIA had like this cabin out in the woods where they all women and do all kinds of crazy stuff. So they end up dosing Frank with LSD and some other stuff, and he starts to get really paranoid. He's calling his wife, like, they're watching me, they're following me. Everybody's freaking out, and he calls his handlers at the CIA, and they said, come see a therapist. We have a psychiatrist who can help you, who's also an MK Ultra doctor. They go to New York. This is 1953. And they go up to a room on the 10th floor of a hotel, and Frank and the official narrative is but we do have a telephone operator who in those days you would call down, like, hey, can I get this number? And they would kind of patch you through. You've seen that in the movies. Well, the operators could hear the calls when you do that. So she's like, he called somebody and said, yeah, he's gone. And the other guy said, oh, that's too bad. And then he called the police, and they show up, and he's in the bathroom, and he's like, oh, what happened? But it looks like Frank Olson maybe had blunt force trauma before. He had no glass on him. The window was tiny. He would have had to run out of the hotel, die, like Superman dive out of there. It's almost impossible. That the CIA has never acknowledged any of this. But the family, for 20 years, his kids were in their 20s and 30s. They were like, we want to know what really happened to Dad. They didn't get a straight answer, but in 1977, President Gerald Ford gave them $750,000 in money in exchange for an NDA. And to me, that tells the story. Why would you pay somebody for asking what happened to Dad? And
this guy, just to clarify, was he threatening to whistleblow on some information, or what was the?
Nope, he just didn't want to dose people anymore. He just didn't want to give people drugs anymore against their will. That's all it was. Now, I'm not calling him a hero, because he was a pretty bad dude. If you create bioweapons, which are illegal, they're illegal. You can't create biowarfare. That's been illegal since the 20s. But he was doing it. So not everybody, there's not a lot of victims there, from my perspective. I go to the CIA pretty hard.
Who invented the term conspiracy theory?
Well, the conspiracy theory is that the CIA invented it, which is it's just it's a meta, very funny, because there's a 1967 memo where the CIA uses conspiracy theory. And it was a way to, when they were doing the JFK investigations, the CIA is like, anyone who questions the official narrative, call them a conspiracy theorist. And they just try to debunk them and just marginalize them. But the phrase goes back to the 1860s. I think it first showed up in the New York Times in 1863, something like that, where people thought maybe the British were helping the Confederates, which I think they might have been. And someone did a letter to the editor and said, oh, those are just conspiracy theories. And then it showed up in the Oxford Dictionary, I think in 1909. So it's been around a while.
But they might have popularized the term.
The CIA definitely brought it to mainstream.
Do you think conspiracy theories themselves are weaponized?
I think they can be. If you use the theory to marginalize somebody, that's weaponizing it. Whether it's COVID, if you have an alternate view of maybe what happened, how it got out, they will weaponize that against you. We saw them do that, and that comes straight from the intelligence apparatus. So I think that's the way to weaponize it, is you just marginalize the person. It's kind of the same formula that they do all the time, is you try to debunk them, then you marginalize them, then you attack them, and then you just censor them. It's just the same formula. And we've seen that going back to really the Second World War, definitely during the Cold War, and then even during COVID. It's just the same thing. History just repeats.
Right. I guess more so from the lens of that, like, propaganda, and someone, like, you want people to go down certain rabbit holes. And, like, I think I heard a quote from some comedian. He said something like 50% of the conspiracy theories are completely true, and then 50% of the ones are, like, to distract from those. Like, do you see that ever in your research? You're like, where did this one come from? And, like, it's fishy.
All the time. What makes it even worse is AI. Like, if you go on to any of the AI platforms and ask about a conspiracy theory, the models will literally try to talk you out of it. They're programmed. Well, first of all, they're trained on data it's all kind of like state approved. It's mainstream media is what they're trained on, which is state approved. So you've got this narrative, and if you ask about JFK or COVID or anything like that, it'll immediately start just bombarding you with facts. You can do this right now. You can go check it out. And recently there's been studies on this that AI is specifically trained to try to stop misinformation. Yeah, I put that in quotes because who knows what that even means. So it's harder than ever to get to the truth because so many people are leaning on AI and that is all manipulated.
I guess, do you think the government ever creates fake conspiracy theories?
All the time.
To confuse people?
All the time. Yes.
What's the most prevalent example of that?
Probably UFOs, UAPs, I would think. I think a lot of what we're seeing in disclosures is just a distraction, like muddy the waters. The government's been doing that with UFOs since they, became kind of mainstream in 47. So yeah, all the time. We saw before Elon Musk took over Twitter and all the Twitter files came out, and you just saw the FBI and CIA was all involved with like tracking people's accounts and getting people deplatformed. Zuckerberg even said it on Rogan, that, they were trying to get us to throw people off the platform for what they were saying. But they were doing that. I mean, I was a creator during that time. I would slip in COVID jokes, but I had to be very careful. I'm not Joe Rogan, especially when you're a new creator. You could turn off my whole life right now if I say the wrong thing. I mean, you remember when you were doing storytelling, right? It's like, can I release this?
Right. It made it like my old crime channel. It was, I think at one point, pretty much 50% of the videos were just getting demonetized, and it was like flipping a coin. And then I had a good friend at the time, Mr. Ballin. He was like, Jack, this is how you're supposed to speak about these things. I was like, oh, okay. So I know what you mean. Did the government drive a guy crazy with fake information about UFOs?
They probably quite a few, but you're probably talking about Paul Benowitz, right? The Paul Benowitz story. Yes, they did. That goes back to like the late 70s, early 80s. Paul Benowitz was an engineer. He's working out of like just in Albuquerque near Kirtland Air Force Base. He was an engineer. He ran a company. I think it was something really cool, like Thunder Scientific. It had a great name, but all he really did was humidity monitors. So Paul he's working at his shop, and it's near the Air Force Base, and he sees lights and crazy stuff in the sky over the base. And he just calls the Air Force Base and says, here's what I saw, and you guys maybe want to check it out. Like with the drones, we saw that story just went away. So it was like Paul did that. And we don't know what they were doing, but it was probably something classified. So at the time, they tasked Richard Doty this is AFOSI, so the Air Force Office of Special Investigations. They tasked Richard Doty with befriending Paul and telling him, yeah, maybe it might have been aliens. It might have been aliens, Paul. We want to keep this quiet, all of that. So Paul was now getting wound up, and he's like tuning his radio, trying to get signals. The aliens start talking to him, and he's telling them at the base, like, they're talking to me, communicating with me, but actually the NSA rented a house across the street, and they were like interfering with his signal. But Doty kept winding him up and just telling him, yeah, it's aliens, man, but we got to keep this quiet. Till eventually, Paul didn't know what was what. He was institutionalized a couple of times, and his life was kind of ruined from it. And Doty has become infamous for this story. He's still around, and now Richard Doty says, oh, a lot of that stuff that I told him was fake was true. But some wasn't, but some was true. And like, we don't know. It's like, I don't know if he's still on mission or not. But the task was muddy the waters. And Doty was involved with injecting specific narratives into the UFO community to get people wound up about it, like the Dulce Base story. It's kind of a Richard Doty story because there is no Dulce Base, but that story got a lot of legs, and Phil Schneider got involved with the story and said he was in a laser beam fight with aliens underground, and they shot him up, and he had all kinds of injuries. He ended up committing suicide in a weird way, Phil Schneider. But that was what Doty wanted to do, was just confuse people in the community. And we found out later on, maybe mid-'80s, when this author, Bill Moore was a big deal in UFOs back then. He's the one who sort of broke the Roswell story with his book. He kind of broke that story. And he went and did an event. And in the middle of his speech, he admitted that he was being paid by the government to spread lies through the community. And you could see this on YouTube. It's crazy. He's just booed, and the MC has to get up and say, everybody calm down. He's basically booed off the stage. And Bill Moore went from rock star to, you really didn't hear from him again. He showed up in like one interview, and that was it. His career was over because you can't trust him anymore. He took money.
Do you ever worry about that yourself? Like, maybe the conspiracies you talk about are fun distractions from real, intentionally hidden horrors done by powerful people? Or do you see it differently?
I don't know if I worry about it. Doing my show, The Y-Files, is different than, like, if my interview show, I worry that, because I get a lot of outreach to, like, hey, come on?
Right. And
my team will say, hey, this guy wants to come on. And I'm like, he's an asset. So no, this guy wants to come on. He's an asset. So no. So I know who's who out there. And I talk to the other podcasters that, get the same outreach. I'm just not going to deal with it. But when I'm just telling the story myself, there's no distractions from any of that. I dig and I say, here's what I found. Here's what I can't prove. It's up to you guys to figure it out. I try not to inject my opinion, except if I'm attacking the government. I just try to, here's what I can surface. Here's what I brought up. And it's really up to the viewer to go figure it out. Because I make mistakes all the time, as people remind me. But I believe there's a lot of stories out there are probably just designed to get our wheels turning. Which ones? I don't know. How would I know?
Do you have a framework for, like, yourself, which ones you're interested in at the moment?
Nothing specific. I mean, I do a lot of UFO stuff because it's in people are interested in it right now. And, there's hearings all the time. And the video dumps and document dumps are really cool.
Did you see Disclosure Day?
No, I'm not going to go see that. I'm not going to go see that. Did you see it?
I did see it.
And?
Well, now I think aliens are real. I'm very empathetic toward them.
No, you didn't like that movie. You didn't like that movie. I heard some early reviews from people I trust, and we had a couple of events planned for Disclosure Day to, like, sync up with the movie release. And I called the team. I'm like, no. We're not associating with this movie. No, this is an op.
All right, so imagine you need relationship advice, and you ask your friend who hasn't been on a date since COVID and has 3 matches on his dating apps even after paying for premium. Like, why would you do that? There's a reason you wouldn't ask that guy to handle your love life. Just like there's a reason Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. Not all law firms are the same. Hire the wrong one and you might be beat before you even start. Morgan & Morgan has been fighting for the people for over 35 years. They've recovered over $30 billion for their clients. And hiring them is like hiring your own army to go into battle for you. They've got more than 1,000 lawyers and 100 offices nationwide. If you're injured by someone else's negligence, you deserve to be paid. And their fee is free unless you win. So if you're ever injured, you can check out Morgan & Morgan. For more information, you can go to forthepeople.com/Jack Neel and see if you have a case. Again, that's forthepeople.com/Jack Neel. But anyway, guys, back to the podcast.
And I called the team. I'm like, no. We're not associating with this movie. No, this is an op. I'm not doing it.
To transition a bit on UFOs.
Yeah.
In 1977, on a Brazilian island, villagers said beams of light were coming out of the sky and burning them. The Brazilian Air Force then launched an official mission and took real photos of what they called the Chupa Chupa. You said, quote, "There's nothing to debunk here. It happened over and over again." What do you think is the most convincing story you've read about UFOs?
There's a lot of stories that are just sort of urban legends where it's like an alien, it's a lizard person, and it's like, well, I can't debunk it because it's an anonymous source, it's an inner legend. So are there lizard people? I don't think so. There might be. That's not, I'm not here as a spokesman for the lizard people. That's for you. But I can't debunk something that's anonymous. That incident that happened on Colares Island in Brazil. that's all documented. The injuries are real. There's photographs of them. 2 women died. And the story is they're on the small island. So it's pretty primitive, like even like huts and stuff. And one story is they would see the ceiling of their hut or their cabin just kind of vaporize, like phase out of existence. And these lights would come down, usually on like the left chest or left breast, and be like just a couple of dots. Like you see shining a laser, like one of the laser dots. But this is back in the 70s. And then they would be paralyzed and they would feel the blood being drained from their body. So that's why they call it chupa chupa for sucker. And these women were taken to a larger hospital near the island, which I think is called Belém, but I could be wrong. I'm going to get a lot of things wrong today. And they saw that these 2 women did have low blood count, like it was reduced, and they were sick and they didn't know what was going on with them. Like the things wouldn't heal. It was like the injuries wouldn't heal, and they died eventually a couple of days later. So the mayor on the island is freaking out now because the whole village is going crazy because these things are going. It's every night. They're just terrorizing the island, and people are getting really hurt, and it's usually women. And the mayor calls the Air Force, and they're like, "Yeah, we could, we'll send an investigator down." He's like, "No, you need to send guys with guns and fighter jets and stuff. We're under attack." So they sent an investigation team to look into it. And the investigation team took like 500 photos. They're like, yeah, this is definitely real. We have all the reports. Brazil eventually declassified all of this. But years in the 90s, they released it. All these reports, and they would see these orbs come up out of the ocean without disturbing the water, go over the village, do stuff in the village, then go out into the jungle, come back. Then eventually they were following the military around. And they said, we didn't know if it was intelligent or not, so we just sort of moved our base a few miles, and the craft just followed them over. And the photographs were all overexposed. They didn't really know what it was. But then when they looked at the negatives, they saw little objects in there, and eventually got like infrared photography, and they saw there's like these little cylinders. They even have film of all this. Film hasn't been released. About 20 years after that that officer who was in charge came forward and said, all this stuff is definitely real. This was just before the release of the documents. And he does an interview with a UFO magazine. I think the guy's name was Guy Javert, if you guys want to look into it. I think that's the journalist. Because you can see his interview online. He's definitely telling the truth, which we know now he was. And he gives this interview, and even before it comes out in the magazine, he ends up in his apartment with his bathrobe, like his bed. Like you could see the death scene photos. It's like, it's really hard to from the floor, but somehow he did. He just ended up dead. His daughter doesn't believe it.
To the bed?
He tied like one end of the rope to the bed, laid back. If you look at it, it's like, how did he die? You throw it, I don't kill a lot of people, but I would think you go higher. It's really weird. It's really weird.
Maybe he... What do you think is the best evidence that humans have been visited by extraterrestrial beings?
I can't see any evidence of that, aside from just stories that people tell. For whistleblowers, I don't really trust the whistleblowers coming out of like Air Force intelligence. So those guys' names, and no, you can't come on my show. So even though you get huge views, you're not coming on. So I don't trust those guys. But like Bob Lazar's story, I kind of believe, but because his story's been so consistent, and he talked about element 115 that was not an element that eventually is one. They were able to create it. It's called moscovium. And it's unstable, but it's on the periodic chart now. And he says he has some, but he won't show it to us. Like I need to see something, physical evidence. I need some low-level scientist to sneak a laser gun or something out of there, a piece of UFO so we can see it. We don't really have anything. We've got little artifacts that have been debunked and stuff like that, but I need to see evidence. As far as aliens, I can't get my mind around how far apart everything is. So if UFOs are real, and I'm pretty sure they are, it might have something to do with interdimensional travel, which sounds kind of woo-woo, but it's definitely scientifically grounded, like traveling in extra dimensions to cross distances quickly. You can do that scientifically. CERN was researching that up until recently, looking for clues of Klein particles, which allows you to slip into extra dimensions, which compresses space geometrically. And the further deeper you go, it's called the bulk. You go further deeper into the bulk you go, it more compresses, and you can just go anywhere really fast. So when we see these orbs or crafts kind of just jumping like it skips a frame, that would be consistent with extra dimensional travel, or just popping out and disappearing. That would be consistent with it. Is that aliens? I guess it could be, or humans from the future, or some type of sentient AI. I don't know. But aliens just zipping across the galaxy here, I can't get my. I don't think that.
Right.
Speed of light is just kind of a thing.
Speed of light is a thing. So you mean that there's bounds to this universe? So interdimensional travel will be outside of those bounds?
No, in extra dimensional, that's scientifically grounded. Like the math works, but the speed of light is still a hard limit. So you would assume that if it's a hard limit for us, it's probably a hard limit for everyone. The laws of physics in our reality are just going to be the same everywhere. So if you're 10,000 light years away, you're still 10,000 years away traveling at the speed of light to get here, which you really can't do. You really can't get up the speed of light because of the mass and the gravity and all that. So you have to find a different way. So is that a wormhole, like an Einstein-Rosen bridge? Could be, but that's a lot of energy. So maybe they harness a small black hole, a singularity. Scientifically could be true. Jump into another dimension, scientifically could work. Requires a lot of energy and expertise that we don't have yet, but we do know it could happen. And the extra dimensions would explain things like the hierarchy problem with gravity. Why is gravity such a weak force when the other forces are so much stronger? Like gravity doesn't make sense. Scientists don't know how it works. They're looking for gravitons. They can't find them. So maybe someone found them. Maybe some species figured out the gravity problem. And the extra dimensions would solve that because if gravity originates in the other dimensions, and this is part of a paper, I think, from 2010, then if gravity starts there, it's so weak because it just leaks down to us, where electromagnetism comes from here, so it might be weaker up there. I point up like it's up there. I don't know. It's around us.
Electromagnetism comes from here.
Is strong here. That's a strong force. But gravity is really weak compared to it.
Huh.
Like, I forget the number, but something like 10 to the negative 43. Like, it's really, really, really tiny.
That's fascinating. I don't have anything about CERN, but I'm just curious because I saw stuff on like X about they turned the CERN machines off. That's why life feels normal again. Like,
did you think they put us back in the right timeline? A lot of things got weird when they turned that machine off. I don't want to get into specifics, but they turned that machine off and a couple of people died and things got weird.
Huh.
I don't know. I don't really subscribe to that theory. I approach all these stories very skeptically. I'm more scientific than woo-woo. At least I, try to convince myself of that. But do you think it's aliens coming here?
I think it serves me best to assume no.
Okay, that's a very diplomatic answer.
I think I connect more patterns that make sense, assuming that one thing is not true. On UFOs specifically, because it would just make more sense to me that UFOs aren't alien spacecraft.
Yes.
You said on Rogan, with a gun to my head, all the weird stuff is in the ocean.
Yes, I would. I did say that.
If you had unlimited access and resources to explore the moon, the ocean, Antarctica, or the Amazon rainforest, which would you choose?
I could only get one, huh? If it was only one, it'd probably be the ocean. Because it's close enough to us that if there's visitors here, that's a good place to hide, is down there. The moon would work too, but it's not as convenient to get here. But the moon is weird. There's something weird going on up there. I'd like to go see what's going on the moon. They won't show us. There's satellites we can't really see. But I think the ocean. There's a lot of good stories about what they've seen in the ocean and like just giant craft under giant discs under the water. Just, if you're going to hide here, just Mariana Trench, because we're never going to be able to get down there.
And you think that's not human?
I don't think that's human. If it's human, then it's got to be time travel. It's just got to be crazy. It's got to be time travel because they've got to figure out the pressure problem and all kinds of stuff. There was one whistleblower, but I don't want to name him because I'm not. The story's kind of sketchy, but it's just a good story. That's what I do. It's a good story. Who said he worked on a recovery program from UFOs in the ocean, and he described in detail how he was a biologist, and the stuff he was saying was definitely biology grounded. This guy was definitely a scientist, but we don't know who he is. We just have his writing. But he described these giant bases under the ocean near the Bermuda Triangle, because of course it makes a great story. And they would kind of move around the ocean. The Navy knows they're there. They don't go near them because they learned that the hard way. And these craft are like sentient AI that are doing missions here. This is a story. And that's why all the UFOs look different. Some are barrels, some are discs, some are this or that. It's because it depends on the mission. So what happens is there's this giant thing underwater. They've got raw materials. They want to do a mission. They're going to survey Antarctica. So they create this package with the sensor data, and it just needs to be this shape, and out it goes. It does its thing. A couple of people see it, comes back under the water, dumps its data or whatever it does, and then it gets disassembled. That makes good sense to me. That would be a good way to do it if you had that technology. Is that what's happening? I don't know. I like the story.
Something that helps me when deciphering truth is what would I do if I had the capabilities. And I think about what humans already do with space flight, space travel. Our first missions are without humans in them.
They are.
We send a lot of technology to different planets. It would make sense that they wouldn't send any beings here.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
And we've heard contactees talk about seeing some aliens up close, and they're like, but when it got really close, it didn't feel like it was alive. They talk about skin looks rubbery, almost like it was a robot. You got stories about alien autopsy. Someone saw an alien autopsy, and the inside was just one organ. There was nothing in there, almost like it was a skin suit or something. And where the bodies, the corporeal bodies, are just sort of vessels that just work well on this mission. It's got two eyes and legs and stuff, and that's how things work here. But it's not alive, really, or it's synthetic kind of biology, which kind of makes sense. We would do that. That would be a rover, Mars rover of the future.
I'm trying to think of a time that aliens would actually interact with humans, or some organic species, species that's not AI or mechanical in nature. Do you think a more advanced civilization has ever turned off one of our nuclear reactors?
I think they have. We know the reactors have turned off. That's documented. You remember when all the drones were happening all over the place, right? The drones were flying over secure military sites all over the country, but just a couple of years ago. A couple of the ones that are not widely reported were over Cheyenne Mountain, which is NORAD, and in a recent data dump, there were orbs or something flying over Langley Air Force Base in Virginia. So you got the CIA right there. You've got an Air Force Base there. They had to stop their mission and get the planes out of the sky because they lost control of the airspace. I think Christopher Mellon talked about it. If we don't even control our own airspace over our most sensitive installations, who's in charge? And they could just turn the stuff off. I mean, personally, I'm glad they turn all that off, man. Just turn it all off. We don't need any we don't need to play with nukes. So something did that. But I don't know if it's aliens. I don't know if it's alive. I don't know if it's us. But if we were visiting, if we had an ant farm, let's say, and there's something going on that is going to destroy our experiment, we would go in there and we'd get it out. We can't have any beetles in here.
Right.
The ants can't have nukes. We could pull it out of there. We would do that. So maybe we're part of that experiment, or they're just here for resources and we're kind of in the way. They're we don't need you polluting the ocean and the air with that stuff, so we'll just turn that off. I hope that's real. That's better than nuclear apocalypse.
Would you guess there's anything else that they've turned off or stopped? Or do you think that would be the one?
That would probably be the one because it's the easiest one to spot. I mean, it's pretty easy to spot nuclear material. And the Roswell crash, which probably happened, that's probably a real thing, is right where they were testing nukes, all over that area, the desert. So I don't think it's a coincidence that those craft are out in the desert instead of, New Jersey or somewhere. And if you look on old films of nuclear tests, I don't know if it's Castle Bravo, it might be, but some of those tests, you'll see stuff in the sky that says just like a film artifact or something, but I don't know, that film artifact is going between the clouds. Like it's like they were watching, like, what are these? Are they nuts? What are they doing? And maybe they went back and to the mothership, and the mothership's like, just turn that shit off, man. We don't need them playing with that. Chimpanzees with a machine gun. It's close to home.
It's so hard to not ask your perspectives about some of the smaller things within this, but
you can. I was going to get a lot of I don't knows.
Yeah. You talked about the dark forest theory.
Yes.
The universe is silent because every civilization is hiding, and whoever reveals themselves gets destroyed.
Yes.
I think in 1977, NASA strapped a golden record to a spacecraft filled with music, maps, our languages.
Sure.
And shot it into space.
It's a terrible idea.
You thought that was a bad idea?
Yeah, I do. I think dark forest theory, there's something to that. That's popularized by Listen Sure, who wrote The Three-Body Problem. I don't know if you read those or watched this show, but you definitely need to. And he says that the universe is dark forest, and anyone who sticks their head up is going to get their head chopped off. There's a limited amount of resources. So anyone who has the technology to get out here with us, we need to stop their technology cold or destroy them. Otherwise, they'll eventually catch up to us and become a rival. That makes sense to me. That's kind of how things work. So I don't know if shooting records into space is a good idea, or the radio telescopes, like, we're here. Maybe don't do that Arecibo message. Maybe just don't do that. But I understand the curiosity. I'd like to know. But yeah, I don't think it's a good idea. Because Stephen Hawking didn't either.
Was there a story of intelligent life communicating with us that you weren't able to debunk clearly?
I probably need specifics to know for sure, because after 300 episodes, it's kind of blurry. But I've never been able to prove anything alien or UFO. I haven't been able to prove any of it. No, except for Operation Prado was the Brazilian one. We have documents that something happened. But at the same time, Brazil was working with the CIA on secret programs down there. So it could have been that.
Right.
A lot of that stuff turns out to be high-tech stuff. It just turns out to be a stealth bomber. Even with all the stuff that's being dumped now, you see numbers being thrown around 40% of this stuff could be extraterrestrial or high-tech material that we can't explain. That's not really what it says. It says 40% of witness reports sounds like ET technology. That's not in the sensor data. In the sensor data, most of it's just balloons and drones. So I haven't been able to have a story that says, this is aliens, this is contact. I don't have any of those.
I find it interesting doing this podcast that in my research of other episodes from other creators and my own conversations, it seems like a common theme that people have kind of torn down this old idea that at one point in time, people were like, the government's so smart. And then now everyone's like, the companies are smart. The government's stupid. They don't have any secret hidden technology. If they do, it's only a month or two ahead.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
I kind of agree with that in some ways, that the high tech, if there's alien tech or advanced tech, it's with the companies. That's where the resources are. But also, if you give that tech to Lockheed or Raytheon, there's no FOIA requests now. There's no transparency. If the government is working on a project, we can ask for freedom of information. We can ask for transparency. We can send a congressman. But congressmen have gone to Area 51 and said, there's nothing here. Well, of course there's nothing here. It's over at Lockheed. That's where all the good stuff is. Or it's with the contractors. And I've talked about that for a long time. And it wasn't until, I think it was Age of Disclosure, that documentary that made me so angry, that came out a couple of months ago, where Hal Puthoff, who's legendary in the community, was talking about, here's how we hide stuff. We give it to the contractors so people can't penetrate the corporate veil. You just can't see in here. And I couldn't believe that he said it on the documentary. I'm we've been alleging this for 20 years, and here's Hal talking about it. So yeah, that all the good stuff is with the companies. That's where all the smart people are anyway. You want the DMV trying to reverse engineer a UFO? No, thank you.
In the 1970s, NASA crashed a rocket into the moon and used instruments to record the sound it made. They reported it rang like a bell for over an hour. Do you think the moon is an artificial hollow structure?
I don't know if I should just flat out answer these questions or if I just kind of should spin the yarn. The moon is weird. So Apollo 11 dropped seismometers to the surface of the moon so we can kind of track the activity, the seismic activity. We didn't know if they have earthquakes, moonquakes. We didn't know what was there. Was there volcanism? So Apollo 12 took part of their rocket and just crashed into the moon, and they took readings to see what would happen. And the scientists were blown away by the fact that, all right, we see the impact, we see the reverberations going through the crust, and they're still going, and they're going, and I went and got coffee and came back. They're still going, and they're still going, and it's just for over an hour, like you said. So when a scientist did say it rang like a bell, but he was using a metaphor. He wasn't saying like it was hollow and humming or anything like that. The moon probably has hollow spaces, but it's very dry, and it's not as dense compared to us. So the sound waves they're gonna go through there. That's just what's gonna happen. We have a bunch of water and all kinds of stuff here. So, we've got a molten core. The moon's core is dead. So things can kind of bounce around. So I don't think it's a hollow spaceship, but there's a lot of stuff about the moon that doesn't add up. Like it's too big. It's too close. It's tidally locked. We've never seen another moon like this in our solar system or any other. Like we've never found anything that is an analog of what is in our sky. And
what's different about our moon as opposed to others in the solar system?
It's too big. Like the moon is really big. About, I don't know, 1/6 the size of the Earth, something like that. It's too close. It's less than 300,000 miles away. It's like right there. And we only see one side, like perfectly. You have other moons that are tidally locked to their parent body, but you have some wobble, so you'll see other pieces of it. But our moon is it's hardcore, like intense. Like it just stays there. We only ever see that edge. We never see what's on the other side. All planets have moons, but they're tiny compared to it, and they're way out there. Nothing like this. I mean, imagine if Jupiter had a moon like the size of Saturn that was just right on top of it. It would be crazy. Right. But that's what we've got.
What do you think the moon is?
The mainstream theory is probably right, but I'm uncomfortable with all of it. The mainstream theory is that it was an impact, like a large body, I think it's called Theia, hit the Earth, spins off the moon. And that's why we have a lot of the same materials. And that's why the moon's crust is a lot like our mantle, because that's kind of got scooped out. That all makes sense, but it's just kind of weird that it didn't keep going, that it just kind of it hit and just sort of formed there and just stayed there. There's just a lot of stuff about the moon that's very strange. And there's allegedly photographs of the other side that show all kinds of cities and structures over there. I'd like to see what's on the other side.
Really?
Yeah. Wouldn't you want to see?
No, I haven't seen the photos with cities and structures.
I think one of the whistleblowers, he talked about it in 2000, maybe 2001 at the press corps event that Dr. Rear put on. His name was Carl Wolf. He worked for the U.S. Air Force, and he was a technician, basically like a copy repairman. He was just a tech guy, and he gets called in to work on some photography equipment. And he's in the Air Force. He's pretty low ranking. And he goes in there and he's like, all right, what's the problem? And the guy's like, you're not going to believe this. Come over and show. And he shows him like these cities and lights and like these mushrooms, these domes and stuff. And Carl Wolf was like amazed by it. And he even said in his statement, like he went home, told his wife, and he turned on the news. He said, I can't wait to hear what they found on the moon. And he was surprised when nothing happened. And then he was told, don't talk about it, all that. He eventually got hit by a car, Mr. Wolf. Yeah. So those pictures are allegedly out there. I don't think those are the ones, but they're pretty good. You'll know them because it kind of looks like bright mushroom cities on the moon. They're really fun.
It's funny because you always hear from people like, oh, we didn't land on the moon because we haven't gone back there.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you know we haven't gone back there, Would you guess that we've gone back?
I don't think we went back. The good story is that we went there and we were told, don't come back. And that's why.
Right.
I don't know if that's true. There was really no resources up there that we were aware of until pretty recently, like helium-3. So it really didn't make any sense to go back because there's no money in it. There's no profit in it. When NASA was defunded essentially in the 70s, it's like we have a very small budget. I mean, NASA had a huge budget during the space race with the Soviets. But after you beat the Soviets, we don't need to spend the money. We won. We won. So there's nothing on the moon of value. So we went to other places. If we find an asteroid that we can harness and it's full of lithium or something, I would think we're going. I bet we are. Because that's profitable. That's worth doing. So it's cool that we're going back now. And helium-3 could be, a game changer as far as energy. So there are resources up there. Now we see who gets there first. I think China's pretty motivated.
Right.
So let's get cracking.
You said that the budget for NASA was significantly reduced in the 70s. I saw that it's like $24 billion annually right now. I'm guessing that's probably like a 10th or something of what it was.
Small. It's probably like a 50th.
A 50th?
It's really, really small.
What would you guess they're doing with that money? Like, I was thinking about this last night. I was like, what the hell does NASA do?
They're government, so they waste most of it. I think that's a fact. But they have a ton of projects. I mean, a ton of projects, things that you don't even really hear about until they happen, like crashing a spaceship into an asteroid or a comet. That was awesome. I didn't know that they had that project until I saw it, like in the news. And we've got stuff on Mars, stuff on the moon, stuff out there, plus all the satellite systems. And NASA's busy. And now with SpaceX and the private sector getting involved, I think it's exciting. And then if you get billionaires like, Bezos and Musk who have so much money that it's like, we'll just go to the Mars just because, that's what you need. Because we don't need the money. I just want to see what's over there. That's fun.
Sorry to interrupt, but if you're a fan of this podcast and want to support real free speech, I just launched a Patreon for the channel. If you join, you get access to all my episodes early and ad-free, as well as the chance to ask each guest a question on my show. We also have some cool behind-the-scenes footage, as well as some unreleased episodes, but if you guys want to check it out, just go to jackneel.com/Patreon, or you can scan the QR code on screen. For the first 300 people, you get a 70% discount, so sign up quickly. And look, I get it. If you're someone who doesn't want to pay money for extra content or podcasts that are ad-free, I have a little gift for you. If you go on the Patreon right now, you can get an extra 5-minute segment from this podcast. Again, guys, jackneel.com/Patreon. Scan the QR code on screen. But anyway, back to the podcast.
And then if you get billionaires like, Bezos and Musk who have so much money that it's like, we'll just go to the Mars just because, that's what you need. Because we don't need the money. I just want to see what's over there. That's fun.
In 1999, an interview was released in Sweden with an alleged reptilian being named Lacerda. And she claims that reptilians are Earth's true natives here long before us, and humans are the 7th attempt at a created species. Were you able to disprove that story?
No, could debug that story. That's the Lacerda files. So Lacerda she's a reptilian humanoid that does an interview with the Swedish journalist goes by Ola K, who is famous for debunking stories like this. He gets outreach from Lacerda. She says, I'm a lizard person, and you're the 7th attempt at human life. Do you want to interview me? And he's like, sure I do. And he's sure. And he shows up, at some cabin. They meet in some cabin. He's there with his equipment. And just sits her down, just starts interviewing and recording. And his coffee mug is levitating, his pen's levitating. She makes his coffee freeze in the cup. She's got telekinetic powers. And she says we all have these powers, but ours are suppressed because our creators, called the Illigen, suppressed them from us. That way because we were just sort of designed to mine copper and defend the mines. So that's what we are. We're warrior miners.
That's what humans are for?
That's what we're made for. And they would try with us, and then it wouldn't work, so they would send an asteroid, they'd try again, it wouldn't work, they'd do a flood, it wouldn't work, and we're the 7th, and our experiment's going pretty well, but they're not super happy with it, so they're coming back to kind of fix it. That's the story. And according to Lacerda, there's other reptilians here as well, and they're competing for the copper. It's kind of a cool metal. You can do stuff to it, you can charge it with energy, spin it around, it could do a lot of stuff. Copper fusion does weird things, and according to Lacerda, does a lot of strange stuff. So there's a war on the planet for the resources, and The Illogym are coming back, and we're going to fight the war with them. That's the story. I can't debunk it because it's a totally anonymous story that showed up on the internet, like the year 2000. No one knows who Ola K is. He named himself K after the character in Men in Black. So don't love that. So no, I couldn't debunk it, but no, I don't believe a word of that story.
Really?
No, but it's such a good story. I don't think they're the way she described it is very present. Like there's a war, and I don't think there's any war in orbit. I think we kind of would see that. I think we'd be aware of that. Were we engineered to mine the Earth? That's part of a lot of legends. I mean, she's telling half the Anunnaki story there, and she says the Christian Bible talks a lot about this stuff, and it could be interpreted as that. And she mentions some things that are in the Book of Enoch that track. So they're good stories, but I like hard evidence. That's why the third act of my show is everyone's least favorite.
Yeah, you said that the watch time just drops off.
It just goes away.
Which I find so surprising, but it kind of makes sense. What are the most common non-human beings people encounter?
Most common non-human beings. The Greys we hear about all the time. Then there's the Nordics. That race comes up a lot. These are like tall, fair-skinned, light hair, look a lot like us. The Greys don't. They're 4 feet tall, the big eyes. Those we hear. Reptilians we hear, and the mantis creatures we hear about those. But someone like John Lear would go on George Knapp's show and say there's like 70 different species. I don't know. Those are the ones that I come across all the time. Those same 4.
Do you think the Greys are humans?
I don't know, man. It's hard to say because time travel to the future, we know that's legit. We know that works. Time travel to the past is a little trickier. The math works, but it's hard to wrap the math around a craft and send somebody back in time. So, because if they're us, they have to be future us, right? But if you subscribe to the theory, it could make sense because maybe something happens to the surface of the Earth, so we go underground, so we have to evolve these large eyes to see in the dark, and we no longer need to be so big because we're compressed, and our skin is pale because we're not in the sun. You can line up the conspiracy theories to make them fit, but I can't get my mind around the science. Salvatore Pais has some really interesting patents. I don't know if you've ever looked into him, but he has some patents about anti-gravity, and I don't think he might have a time travel one, but like creating wormholes, all kinds of stuff. And the patents are owned by the U.S. Navy, which is really strange. He works for Space Force now. He never gives interviews. Maybe he'll talk to you. That would be awesome. He never gives interviews. He's got these crazy patents. A lot of the technology looks like old Nazi technology or ancient Indian technology from the Vedic texts. Like, it's really crazy. Like these spinning rings of mercury, like mercury engines. I come across that a lot, like counter-rotating mercury vortex engines. I come across that story a lot. And those are in his patents. So I like that because it's like someone trying to make it practically work.
Right.
But his patents are very vague. There's a lot of speculation. Physicists don't like his stuff. And his patents were rejected initially. The U.S. Navy called and said, no. We got anti-gravity to work. It's a legit patent. And patent was approved. They're not supposed to do that. So we have it or we don't. But my point is, it's cool that somebody's trying to make it work. So if he can make a craft go back in time, then maybe it's us.
So scientifically, time travel is possible for humans.
Time travel is possible for humans, yes, scientifically. If you go fast enough or you're near gravity, time moves slower for you than it does to the observer. So if you travel the speed of light and come back, everybody's dead. And you only aged, whatever, a month, something like that. So that's time travel in a way.
Right. You told one story that in 1977, a soldier walked into a glowing mist in the Chilean mountains and returned 15 minutes later with 5 days of stubble on his face, and his watch jumped 5 days forward. You couldn't debunk that one, could you?
Let's tell the story first. That was a Chilean soldier. That's documented. That story's documented. That happened. There was another one that happened also to a military outfit. I think they were English. In the 60s, they hit the same mist, And I think the officer was a general, like charged toward the mist and hit some invisible boundary, sort of bounced off. Everybody in the area started to feel cold. And then to each person, it looked like everybody else was frozen. But you were still moving. And everyone's like, you were frozen, I was moving. So that was all very strange. And there's another story of a pilot flying kind of like toward Miami, and he hits one of these time storms. He's off course and he's talking to the radio tower, and he's whatever, 200 miles from the airport, whatever it was. And they're like, we don't see you anywhere. And then the mist goes away and he's like, oh, I see the airport. And they're like, oh yeah, we got you. But it's supposed to be like a 45-minute flight and he just got there. So time jump. And there's another British pilot who's flying over like an old Air Force base in England, and it's all dilapidated. There's like cows grazing on the pasture and stuff. He sees like these guys in blue suits around or something like that. He didn't know what it was. And he does his mission and he comes back, and now it's a brand new military base, and there's craft down there and all things like that, which happened in the future. Like they changed the color of their suits and the aircraft. So he like was seeing the future or something like that. A lot of the time storm stories come from Jenny Randles, who's an author who writes a lot about that stuff. That soldier, I think his name was Valdez, he came out later and said, I kind of fudged a little bit of the story and we were having a good time with it, so everybody kind of built on it. Like he walked it back quite a bit. A lot of those other stories have been either debunked or, like the guy with the flight to Florida, that really happened, but it could be explained by high winds. He got caught up in some type of cloud or something, got hit by high winds and just kind of pushed him really fast. I just have to say that theory, I kind of like the time travel one better. But is that the debunking? I don't know. It's Jenny Randles is a real researcher, but the research is a lot of it it's speculative.
Right.
I don't believe most of those stories, but I like them. A couple of them are pretty good though. Like the military flight, his name just came to me as Goddard. Is worth looking into. His story's pretty good. Like he even wrote a book about it later. Like Jenny didn't write this story. The pilot wrote it, and he was like a legit pilot. Everything he said lines up. Whether you believe he time traveled, that's on you. But he said he did.
I guess if you had to put together the stories that you've read over the years on time travel, would you guess that humans have more likely unintentionally time traveled or intentionally time traveled?
The stories would point to unintentional time travel, because we talk about time slips is a phenomenon that's really fun. Where you'll be walking down a neighborhood. There are some hot spots for this. Like in England has quite a few. You'll walk, maybe one story is a guy walks into a bookstore and has a conversation with a woman. And he walks out and something feels weird and he turns around, the bookstore is gone. It's like a pub or something. And he doesn't understand what happened. And he finds out later there was a bookstore here like 30 years ago, and the woman he talked about was the owner. You see that story all the time, where some soldiers they're going down to a village. All these are in England. And they go down to this village. It's really weird. It's quiet. Everything looks medieval, but kind of new. And they don't really see any people. They see like a butcher shop, and there's an animal hanging there. It's all kind of bizarre. And they noticed that when they were going down there, they heard church bells. But when they got down there was nothing like that. But they found a church half under construction. Now, this is 4 guys with the same story. And then eventually they go back out of the village and they look back and everything is modern again. And the church is built and they hear the bells. And then they go back down there and nothing happens. It's like they all slipped into a time storm or slipped into it, and they all traveled at time. Now, 2 of those guys stuck with the story. One guy said he doesn't remember, and one guy said it didn't happen. So that's frustrating. That's a third act part.
Right.
But there's a lot of time slip stories. Those are fun. But that's all unintentional.
You said a lot of these happen in the UK or Britain. Why do you think that is?
I mean, a good answer would be ley lines. Maybe there's high energy parts of the earth where energetic particles collide, cause some type of anomaly with time and space. Or maybe that's just where the story started and that they kind of become local legends. So someone tells a story and then the person's like, comes up with the story because the tension's fun.
Do you see that a lot? Like similar stories coming out of similar areas consistently?
Consistently. Especially with I You always know a hoaxer because their story has all the things in it. Their story has everything. They've got grays and they got reptilians, and there's craft, and there's orbs, and there's telekinesis, and they're recruited as children, and they go back to fight a war in the Kuiper Belt, and they come back to their bodies. Like, it's all, like, you got everything. You got every conspiracy story rolled into one. I know you're definitely lying. If you look up Dan Burlish's story, he's got all of them wrapped up into one. Corey Goode's another one. It's all wrapped into one. So it's not. I know it's not true. Stories like Bob Lazar would just talk. He's like, I just know this one thing. I don't know anything about lizards. I worked on the UFO. That's what he says. Those are the stories I tend to believe more. Where someone's like, I don't know anything about Mars and the future and some space war. I just know something came to my room at night. I saw lots of lights, and now I have a bump under my skin that my doctors don't know what's in there. Their implant or whatever. Those stories are very interesting. And the implant stories is like, there's the X-ray. What is that?
There's an implant in him?
There's implants in quite a few of these stories. Remember we talked about Operation Prado in Brazil with the lasers and bloodsuckers? That officer, during that mission, went back home for the weekend, which is kind of what he was doing. And he had a visitation at night in his bedroom at his house. And he said they look like grays. And he freaked out, and he got out of bed, and they were just gone. But the next morning, he's like, something hurts in his arm, and he's itchy, and he's got this bump. And the doctors don't know what it is. And you see him on camera. He's giving the interview, and he's showing you the bump. Like, it's not AI. This is from like 1995 or something. He's showing you the bump. It's there. So something's there. And you see implant stories all the time with it. They don't know what it is.
And the X-rays show nothing?
No, they show something under there. Now, it doesn't look like technology. It could be a cyst. It could just be a cyst. I prefer to think of it as like a tracking chip or something like that. Right. It'd be way cooler. But you do see something.
Huh. Just on you, I'm guessing the answer is no. But have you ever had a this world sober experience with like an entity?
Nothing.
Really?
The closest would be, some kind of psychedelic trip. But not. I've never seen a UFO. In Vegas, I saw like a green comet not too long ago. I don't remember seeing green comets growing up, and definitely not this bright. But it was interesting because just a few months earlier in Vegas, there's a green comet on a police officer's body cam footage, and then Metro PD gets a call that there's an alien in someone's backyard. Now that story's been a little urban legendized and conflated because that's not really what happened. But you do see the comet on the police officer's camera. Like, you see it. Green comets, I didn't grow up with those. That's a new thing. That's a Gen Z comet. I'm Gen X. We had blue comets, white ones. Have you seen a UFO? Or something weird in the sky?
The only thing I've noticed is an inordinate amount of satellites. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But maybe they're just planes.
Maybe just satellites, but there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
The orbs are very strange. We're seeing orbs all over the place. I didn't see a lot of that growing up.
Yeah, it's weird. The sky kind of freaks me out in general.
Does it?
Yeah, when I look at it.
You can't think too hard about it.
What is this? Yeah,
It'll break your brain if you think too hard about what it is.
I read about this. I was like, do people go crazy looking at the moon? I was like, why is it called lunatic? Lunar,
Yeah.
And apparently it's like a thing in old religions. It's like, don't stare at the moon too long.
Yep, that's true.
Why do you think the pyramids were used to generate energy?
Oh, I love that theory. That's Christopher Dunn's theory. It's certainly not mine. There's a lot of physical evidence that something was strange about the pyramids, that maybe they're not used for what we were told they're used for. Like that the pyramid of Khufu was to hold the mummy of a pharaoh. That definitely wasn't. There's a box in there, but it's not big enough for a pharaoh. It would fit, like an Ark of the Covenant would fit in there nicely, which would make everything work. But there are multiple shafts into that pyramid that have chemical residue of different chemicals that, when combined, create an explosion of hydrogen gas. The way the pyramid's built, that gas would not explode. It would be compressed, and it would shoot up what's called the gallery. And the gallery just looks like an escalator. But back in the day, it had these wooden baffles on there. And if this theory is true, and it's a pretty good one. I like it. This is one that I think there's a lot to it. So if that hydrogen flows through there, those baffles would vibrate at a certain chord. I think it's 440 hertz, and which happens to line up perfectly with the hydrogen atom. And also, the gallery is surrounded by this it's called rose granite. Rose granite is highly piezoelectric. So it's a type of quartz that if you compress it, it creates charge, which we know is scientifically true. But you only find it in the gallery. The rest of the pyramid is limestone, which is a good insulator. And then the exterior was this Tura limestone, which would be a good insulator. So you've got this electricity, this compression, you've got the sound, and then you've got this little opening going into the king's chamber that's just the right size for a hydrogen atom to go through, like as a waveguide. Goes into the king's chamber, and then supposedly that chamber resonates at the same frequency, and it's really compressed, so it's really loud. And in the king's chamber, you've got these stone slabs above the chamber there that are super flat on the bottom, but all kind of chunky on the top. And they're called relieving stones because they're supposed to relieve the pressure of the pyramid. The thing is, they don't really touch. It doesn't really touch that. But what they do see is chip marks on the top of there, which could be someone tuning it. Chip a few more. Like if you blow across a bottle, right. That's a Helmholtz resonator. So that would be the same type of technology in the king's chamber. So that all fits. So that could create a lot of energy. If it's been proven that if you send electromagnetic energy at the pyramid, it will resonate that at lower frequencies. It does do it. We've seen it work. Where there's no closure is, okay, I'm with you all the way up to that. That all makes sense. But what happens to the energy? There's really no evidence for that. There's theories that the capstone was gold, which would be cool because it's a good conductor. Could maybe shoot energy into the ionosphere. And that kind of tracks with Nikola Tesla's experiments that he was doing at Wardenclyffe Tower. It's almost the same kind of technology. Is you use this aquifer, this water underneath, you put copper rods down in there, do some stuff on the surface. Tesla used electricity. They used hydrogen to create electricity with the stone. It's electricity. And then it just goes up. So we know that the pyramids are built on an aquifer. And we have found copper rods. It's not supposed to be copper there at that time, but they found it, just like Tesla did. What Tesla wanted to do was send that energy into the ionosphere and then have receivers that can then take it out. And then you just plug in your microwave or whatever. That's what he wanted to do, was free energy for the world. That's why he was basically, marginalized and debunked and defunded, is because free energy is not good for business. So is that what the pyramid was for? It would make sense to me, except we haven't found any receivers. I've been told that, the obelisks we find are receivers. That's fine, but there's no metal in those. But it could just be a technology I don't understand. Nobody seems that interested in trying to learn it. So, but a lot of this I get from Christopher Dunn. He's a good read.
Have they found anything that would utilize electricity in the first place?
No. You'll find some people will say that if you look at the hieroglyphics, they're called the dendera lights. They look like light bulbs. It's like a bulb. It's got sort of a coily thing in there. But the Egyptians didn't make glass, so it's not a bulb. And they wouldn't have done that. That's the way we did light bulbs. You heat a filament in the glass with some gas and it glows. They didn't do any of that. So I don't see any receiver for it or any use for it. There's no evidence that electricity was used for anything. We have a lot of stuff laying around that's like full of wires.
Right.
But maybe they did something a different way. Or maybe they didn't use electricity the way we do. They're like, what do you use it for? You use it to power stuff? No, it does this. And we just like, it changes consciousness maybe? I don't know. It could be.
That's interesting, yeah. I really need to do a deep dive on the whole frequency thing, how it all connects, just like frequencies in general. But
definitely connects. You could definitely alter your consciousness with frequencies for
you
sure.
Can?
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me about that.
One of the famous ones is the Hemesing process. I just had Tom Campbell on, who's one of the inventors of it. He worked on it at the Robert Monroe Institute. And the Monroe Institute is famous for the gateway process, which is this process where you put on some headphones and two sounds are played in your ear, binaural beats, but the sounds are just off by about 4.5 hertz, which you can't hear. It's too low, but your brain can tell the difference. So your brain kind of gets in sync with that wave. And when that happens, according to the gateway process, you can enter the greater reality, you can manipulate the universe, you can manifest things to happen. And we know this because the military went down there to experiment, and they sent, like military intelligence officers down there to learn the process to see if they can change time and space with the gateway process. So there's something to it. I've tried it. I keep falling asleep. I haven't manipulated time or space yet. I'm working on it. But it's real enough that this is the 80s. It's not like a million years ago. In the 80s, the military was down there checking out, like, how do they affect consciousness? And you've heard of Havana syndrome.
Right.
It's the same thing as frequencies affecting the body. So there's a lot to it. I mean, it's electromagnetism. That's a thing.
Do you believe in manifestation?
I kind of do.
Really?
Only because I've seen it. I feel like I've seen it happen. This is almost weird to say because I don't talk about this too much. But I had my closest friend died or was killed, like when he was 25. Back when I was like 20, 26. So this is a million years ago. So like if I need something, his name is Pat. If I need something, I'll ask Pat for it. Whether it's a twist tie, whether it's maybe it's nicotine pouches. And it's become like a joke in my family. Like, just ask Pat and he'll do it for you. Like I couldn't find my keys one day. And, this is in the office. This is not when I was a kid. This is like 6 months ago. I'm like, Pat, I need my keys, man. I can't be stuck in here all night. Almost like a joke. I'm walking around the studio. I come back to my office and my keys are sitting in front of my keyboard. It's like, that was a crazy one. It's one thing to find a paperclip when I need one, because you want to reset a CD drive or something. It's another thing to have my keys placed up there. So I kind of connected this with Pat and his death, but I don't believe in ghosts. So Tom Campbell's like, you're manifesting that. I'm like, what? He's like, Pat's awesome. That's fine. But you need a paperclip. You need a pen. You need your keys. You're just putting it out there in the universe that you have this, and the universe is just providing it. I'm like, well, how big can you do that? He's like, as big as you want, man. He's like, I'm like, can you manifest $1 million? He's like, someone did it. He said, she manifested $10 million. He tells a story on my show. I'm like, no way. He documents all of it.
I want to listen to that one.
But have you ever manifested something? Or had a synchronicity? Like you're thinking about a person and they text you out of the blue? Or you're thinking about something and it shows up right when you need it?
I have a unique way of explaining everything that's woo-woo with slightly less woo-woo stuff.
That's why I like your show.
Like the manifesting, I would say the logical answer is, you're just orienting yourself toward this. But my answer would probably be something like you're affecting your subliminal subconscious mind that you can't access, and other people can feel that, and that people are more capable, sense more than they think they sense, and in that way it works. So I just say, yes, it works.
I mean, that kind of works. That's a pretty good theory.
On Tesla, 120 years ago, Tesla built a tower to beam electricity through the air.
Yeah.
The man funding the project, J.P. Morgan, killed the project with one question: how do you put a meter on that?
That's right.
In other words, how do you make money off of it? Do you think we have free energy? And if so, who would control that energy?
I think we probably have something close to it. We, meaning military contractors, like we don't have it. I don't think we'll ever have it. Oil is just so good for all kinds of stuff, making money, making war, making money, making power. Then we're going to stick with that for a long time. There's a lot of energy technology that I think is suppressed, but I don't have any evidence of it. You've got inventors that have heart attacks and go missing. I have a lot of those through the years, whether it's a water car or Sparky Sweep with his 0-point electricity device. He's my favorite Sparky because he actually shows the thing on camera. That's unusual. It's one thing to talk about the pyramids because nobody knows, but Sparky's like, here, look, all this stuff is running off of the box, and there's no wires. So
is this guy alive?
No. He went public with his device, and I tell this on my show. If you know how to do this, don't tell anybody. Just work on it and then just public domain it. You'll get rich. Don't worry. Don't patent anything. So Sparky went public with this. Someone from the military got interested and came over, like a scientist, like a physicist, and like, I'll help you with this, and helped him. And then someone visits him from somewhere. I don't want to get it wrong, but someone visits him. Allegedly, it's like the men in suits type of thing. And they leave, and a few hours later, Sparky has a heart attack. Ambulance comes, they grab him. They won't let the wife in the ambulance or anything like that. She has to stay home. Ambulance goes. Sparky dies. A couple of trucks come up, and they empty out his garage and all his equipment, and it's all gone. And that's the story. And that's kind of how it ends. And most of that happened. Now, did he have a free energy device? I don't know. But it's the video that he takes, it's very compelling. Like, it's not AI. And I'm looking like frame by frame, like, where's the trick? Because there's a trick in here somewhere, but I can't find it. Like, he's just got one wire, and he's got the voltimeter on there, and you can see and it gives you as much energy as you need. He's like, plug in fans take up a ton of energy. Lights, everything. He's just, whatever you plug in, it'll just pull it out of there. And that's part of the 0 point theory, is that it gives you whatever energy you need because it's so much of it. Shows up in the UFO lore all the time that these craft are powered by these little boxes that can power a city, they can power the world, whatever energy you need, you just plug it in and it just pulls it out of the vacuum. And we know the vacuum's full of energy, so it's got to go somewhere. So I think we probably have it. We're definitely working on it. Like, is anti-gravity, 0 point energy, they're definitely working on that stuff. But they're very quiet about it. I don't think we'd ever going to find out. We need someone to invent it and then just go big and public domain it.
It's tough with this one because this is where I get a little off base. So the obvious, like, the average person hears that and they're like, well, why wouldn't they just want everyone to have free stuff? And it's like, and then the person says, well, because they want to make money off it. But then I'm like, why do they care about money so much if it's like a controlled type of thing? Or do you see money as like a controlled type of thing?
I mean, if it gives you as much energy as you want, like, there's unlimited, there's no one really in control of that.
Right.
That was Tesla's dream, was like anybody can just plug into the tower. And think of what would that mean for like the African continent if suddenly they just had free energy.
Right.
There would never be a need. Every war is fought for oil. Every war that I could think of is fought for oil, or at least resources. But if you solve the energy problem, then what are you fighting over now? Like, you can build anything. Energy is just free.
What were the last words of the guy who invented a water-powered car?
Stanley Meyer's last words were, "I was poisoned." Stanley Meyer was an inventor who created, he's famous for the water car. This is in the 90s. And it ran just on regular water through a technology called electrolysis. You take H2O, you hit it with high energy, and it splits off into hydrogen and oxygen, and you use the hydrogen as energy. That works. So he created this water car that drove all around the country. He had engineers looking at it. They couldn't debunk it. And he was I think he was at a Cracker Barrel. Now, the story I heard was that he was with some investors from like the Netherlands or Belgium, something like that. There's another version where he's talking to NATO members or something like that. Whatever it is, they're toasting this new investment at the Cracker Barrel because that's a great place. Terrible. And they toast, and he's like, something's happened to him. He runs out, and he dies basically in the street. His brother chases after him, and he tells his brother, "I was poisoned." Now, they do toxicology on him later. They don't find any evidence of poison. Official cause of death is aneurysm, and Stanley had high blood pressure, so that makes sense. Maybe he was excited and had an aneurysm. But the autopsy it is kind of weird. It's not definitive. There's something weird about the autopsy report if you read it. What's not, and that's a great story. What's not commonly told is a court found him. I don't want to say convicted, but found him as a fraud. They said that technology is fraudulent. So a court found him as a fraud. So I'm skeptical of the story. But that technology works. Electrolysis is a real thing, but as we know it, Stanley's would violate the law of thermodynamics. Like, however much energy you get out of electrolysis, you have to put more in to get that energy out because of thermodynamics. So Stanley's didn't have that. He just put water in. And to get electrolysis to work, you need perfect water. Like, you need H2O with nothing in it. And that's very hard to get. Like, this is not perfect water, and the tap is definitely not. It's full of all kinds of stuff. The fluoride for the mind control, but also minerals and all kinds of stuff. But his just ran on tap water. He just went to the tap and poured it in. So that's why it was bananas.
Is there anything on the fluoride one?
I think a little bit.
Really?
I think a little bit.
Huh.
It's that one's been marginalized so much that I'm still, because I'm a lot older than you. So when I was growing up, like the dinosaurs being killed by an asteroid, it was like, you can't say that. That's bananas. So I'm still kind of wired to be very careful about what I say I believe. But yeah, I think there's something to it. To the fluoride as making us more obedient. There's something to it. Like you don't want to have too much fluoride now. And I don't use fluoride toothpaste or on tap water. I don't do any of that.
Yeah, me either. But I think about it and I'm like, well, when they said fluoride was bad, what did I do? I just bought another toothpaste brand. And when they said that the water was turning the frogs, whatever,
Right.
I started drinking like glass water, plastic bottles of water. And I'm like, I just feel like I'm spending more money
Right.
in the first
Like
place.
you're being manipulated anyway.
Yeah.
By Tom's toothpaste company.
But did scientists find a 2 billion year old nuclear reactor?
They did find one. That's the Aqua reactor. They found that in Gabon in West Africa. That was a uranium reactor. They discovered that the uranium ore there, which that's where it's mined, which had uranium-235. For some reason, it was throwing off U-235, which shouldn't happen. That's only a nuclear reactor would do that, to create that isotope as we knew it. But what happened there was the uranium back 2 billion years ago was much richer than it is now. I mean, much richer. And if you have enough seawater, salt water, that you pour into that thing, you can create fusion. That's just the science works. We couldn't do it now. The uranium is just too depleted. But back then, you definitely could. And I think that's, the conspiracy is that there were aliens and had a nuclear war and stuff like that. I don't believe that at all. I think it's way cooler that the Earth created a nuclear fusion reactor before there were humans. I think that's way cooler. And it didn't create that much energy anyway. We're talking maybe 20, 25 kilowatts. But it did it for years and years and years. It ran and then power down and come back on. Like it's a really strange story. Like nobody thought that was possible.
So you think it was just a natural occurrence?
I do.
This is a good follow-up to our last podcast where the guest posed an idea about nuclear. Do you think nuclear bombs are real?
I do think they're real. Well, your guest didn't think they're real? I'm going to have to watch that.
Have you dove into that one? Or has that not crossed?
I don't think I've even heard that.
Huh.
Because we've seen nuclear tests. So does he think the nuclear tests that we on film are fake?
Yeah, he's shown videos of them and they did look a little weird.
I'm going to have to look into that. That's pretty fun.
Huh.
I hope he's right. It's great propaganda. You need coordination from enemy nations to do it, but I think there's some coordination, some level, to enemy nations.
Right. Because I had asked, when I had Tucker on, I was like, was it every country that we shut down for COVID? And he was like, it was like most of them. And I was like, well, that seems coordinated to an extent.
It certainly does. Yeah, I mean, enemy nations coordinated in Wuhan lab. That's certainly true. So why not coordinate on something else?
Right.
We certainly do.
And something I said about it was that, like, once a lie is told, if the person who told the lie dies, then the lie kind of sticks.
It kind of sticks.
There's no reason that, like, the current administration in office, like in China and Russia or U.S., would have to know that they're real. Like there's no reason that the president would have to know that a nuclear bomb is real necessarily.
No, he can go and see it, like a missile. He doesn't know what's in it. But I had never heard that story. But that's a pretty good one. I hope it's true.
You hope it's true? Why would you hope it's true?
That there's no such thing as nuclear weapons?
Because you don't have to worry about the threat of nuclear warfare. That is what the guest did say. He said that's why he cared about that specific conspiracy theory, because he's like, I'm glad I know this one because I don't have to have that anxiety anymore.
Well, people my age, Gen Xers, that was our biggest anxiety. We thought the nuclear war was going to start any day. That's how we grew up, with just low burning anxiety all the time about the Soviet Union. That's how we grew up, is that the missiles are coming. We would do drills in school under the desk. It was scary. That was it. That was the only thing that bothered Gen X. That's why we're so chill now. It's like, We lived through the Cold War. This is easy. We had Michael Jackson. Things were good. Our parents were never around. It was awesome.
Michael Jackson. You talked about a 29-story skyscraper in the middle of Manhattan with no windows, no lights, no offices, and no people. What's the one cell phone provider you wouldn't use?
Well, rather than say the provider, I'll say that building is the AT&T Long Lines building. That's 33 Thomas Street. So that's the AT&T Long Lines building. But the NSA coordinates with all the mobile providers, so they're capturing all our data anyway. So it doesn't matter. AT&T, T-Mobile, whoever it is, they're capturing our data.
Are they particularly lax about sharing it though, AT&T, or do you think it's...
No, it's coordinated.
It's all...
Yeah, well, this is in the Snowden documents. That's how we learned about Thomas Street. It's a codenamed Titan Point, and it's a weird building, and it was designed by AT&T as a kind of a communications and power hub to survive a nuclear war. That's why it looks so weird. There's no windows on it because there's really no one in there, and it's a crazy building. I'm from New York. I walked by it, I don't know, a million times. I never noticed it, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. There's hardly anybody there. AT&T will not acknowledge any of this, even though we saw the Snowden documents that came out. We know something was up. We know the NSA and the government was inside of Google, inside of Yahoo, like in your Google Drive. They can see all of it. In the presentation, they even had little smiley face emojis in there, like, yeah, we did it, yay. So we know that's in there. We know that James Clapper was confronted about it and lied to Congress twice. So it doesn't matter what provider you have. It's all that data is being captured. We're being watched every second. There are other creators I talk to that we don't use we use secured comms to talk about stuff. Because some of these creators...
I'm tempted to ask what the secured comms would be. I would have guessed that there'd be any.
Just apps that are hyper encrypted.
Right. When I think about that, I think of levels of access, perhaps. Maybe someone could get this app, but less people could get this app.
I think so. I think it's just less easy.
Right.
Some of these folks are definitely being monitored. I doubt I am. I don't think anyone cares about the guy with the fish, but I never had an issue or an incident that would lead me to believe that I'm a troublemaker. But I talked to a few, because I'm not really political or anything like that. But I talked to a few, and we know they're listening and capturing our data. It's so easy to get a FISA warrant. It's ridiculous. The Patriot Act gets renewed by every administration, Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. They keep renewing it. We don't need it. It can go away. We don't need Homeland Security. That can go away.
Mockingbird, I've talked about it a few times.
Have you?
Yeah. In the 70s, the CIA paid journalists, news anchors, writers to spread different messages. You said it's, quote, still going on, and that some of the people still reading to you on the news are on the payroll, and that you know some of their names. How many people?
I can think of 5 off the top of my head that for sure are assets. I'm not going to name them because they'll find out. They know who they are. All you have to do is listen to them talk, and you'll see the clues. Look at their names, and you'll research their names. Check into their backgrounds. You'll find weird things. Are they connected to intelligence in any way? Have they had strange changes of opinion or ideology that seem to flip on a dime at any point in the recent history? Just look into that, and you'll say, oh, this person totally flip-flopped on this suddenly, or this person is in a different relationship or has different types of guests on their show. So there's 5 off the top of my head. There's definitely more, but I don't really watch cable news. I don't think at all anymore. I get my news from YouTube. I try to watch all sides, and it's just a lot harder to get an asset in YouTube because once somebody's not trusted on YouTube, they're kind of dead, and we'll just go find somebody else to watch. Do you watch cable news?
For fun.
For entertainment. That's fine.
Yeah.
Fox and CNN are both very funny. They're entertaining.
I just always find it interesting to see what they're talking about. It's like, really? I didn't think of that way. But do all the people that are on this type of payroll, do you think they know?
Not all of them know, I don't think. I think most of them do, but not all of them do. I don't think the CIA is still admitted to Mockingbird. It was Carl Bernstein went back and actually saw it wasn't 40 journalists, it was 400, and the heads of the network were involved. And these journalists were getting stories killed or getting stories out there coming directly from the CIA. Some journalists were bagmen carrying money for the agency. Some journalists would let the agency use their hotel room. Like, some of them thought they were serving their country, they're patriots. That's cool. Some of them like to play spy. Some of them just like money. It's not, I think it's pretty simple. If I give you enough money, you will say what I need you to say.
Right. Have you ever submitted a FOIA request?
No, I never have. My show is so turn and burn so fast. They take months. And I don't look that far ahead. I'm like a dog. I only see my next meal. I only work on my next episode. I don't know what I'm going to do in 6 months.
And that's never tempted you? Like, there was never like one thing?
No, because I don't consider myself like in the UFO community, or I'm not an analyst. I'm not an analyst. I'm not a debunker, really. I'm a storyteller. So I just want to tell the story. So do I believe in time storms? No, I don't believe that. But it's such a good story. A mist, and it grows the beard and the clock. It's just, that's what I do. You just tell the story.
I'm not sure if you've done a deep dive on algorithms specifically on your channel, but you talked about dead internet theory. But if you had to guess from a technical perspective, what prompt would you use to recreate our current social media algorithms?
Create an app where I'll be shown content that reinforces my worldview severely, and show me content that is the complete opposite of my worldview that makes me really angry, that gets me engaged, so I can sell ads on that engagement. That would be the prompt I would use. So like Facebook. We just made Facebook.
You think it's as simple as that?
I do. Get people angry? Because it's just engagement. Facebook is just there to make money. That's what a business is supposed to do. We're just supposed to make money. And that's how they do that. And Facebook makes a lot of money on ads. Ads only work if someone looks at them. So we need you on the platform. And the best way to stay on the platform is get you fighting with each other. That's why I tell people don't do it. I can't remember the last time I logged on to Facebook.
Do you think it's more sophisticated than that ever?
If you gave an example, I can give an opinion, but I think it's just money.
You mentioned assets that could potentially be online. Like, how do algorithms interact with those types of people?
I don't know if they do.
Might not be necessary.
Because algorithms are not motivated by anything. People are. Money is very motivating, especially lots of it. And if you're the government, you have unlimited money. You can just print it. So I think it's as simple as that. Like, would you do this for $1 million? No. $100 million? $500 million? I mean, I feel like I don't have a price, but of course I do. I mean, everybody has a price.
Right. What's the most interesting thing someone with influence has told you about how power actually works?
It's hard to answer without outing people. Because I have spoken to people with influence about how power actually works. Kind of dark. Like people are disposable. Assassinations are just, they're totally justified. And I think kind of even self-justified, like this person had to die for the greater good, or this had to happen for the greater good. This plane had to be shot down, or this journalist had to be silenced. It's just for the greater good. I think there's a lot of that. That's how it really works. And our multi-tiered system where, you and I can get in trouble for just about anything. We can speed and get a ticket. But there are people that can just kill other people and they're fine. Or they can hurt somebody and they're fine because they have connections, or they have lawyers, or they have money. That doesn't apply to us. We see it all the time. Some senator drives off a bridge and someone gets killed and never has to answer for it. Stuff like that. We can't get away with that. We can't get away with, dead people.
Right. What do you think is the best story the CIA has ever told us?
The best story? JFK is a pretty good one. Maybe just because it's one of my favorites. I'd have to think on that. If you have a specific one, I can weigh in.
I mean, this isn't CIA, but you made a video about how in 1943, British intelligence took the body of a homeless man who died from rat poison.
Yes, I know this one.
How did the guy who created James Bond trick the Nazis into defending the wrong country?
Okay, that's a good story. The beginning of World War II, the Nazis were very, very strong. Like, they were almost unstoppable, especially because the Soviet Union working with them as well. So Nazis are very, very strong. And there was no way for the Allies to penetrate. The Allies could not go east. There was no way. D-Day was like a nightmare, and that's later. So there's no way to get to the east. So what Churchill wanted to do is attack what he called the soft underbelly of Europe, which is come to the Mediterranean, and they wanted to attack Sicily. And then if you get Sicily, you get Italy, and Mussolini's done, you get Italy, you get Europe. But Sicily was heavily defended by the Germans. So they were like, how can we... They were planning for this invasion. It was going to be a bloodbath, but like thousands of troops were going to die, hundreds of boats. So how are we going to do this? And someone comes across something called the Trout Memo, and it's got all these crazy ideas for military. And one of the items on the Trout Memo was, here's a crazy idea, not a very nice one, I think it said. And the Trout Memo was written by, I forget the general's name, but it was actually written by his aide, who was Ian Fleming, who wrote the James Bond books. And what the idea is you put some false papers on like an airman and have him look like a parachute accident, have his body wash up, and the documents are found, and that can maybe get them to defend the wrong country. So they spun up what's called Operation Mincemeat. And they called it that because you know what mincemeat is?
It's like the really sliced thin meat, right?
Yeah.
Squares.
And it's like made out of like whatever scrap is around, and sometimes fruit and sugar and alcohol. Like it's on a British eat weird stuff. And they called it that because the body was rotting. So that's why they called it that. So they had this idea that they would wash a soldier on shore with these classified papers that says the Allies are going to attack Greece. And if they can get Hitler convinced to pull out of Sicily and go defend Greece, Sicily is wide open. So they find a homeless guy, and they give him a false identity. They give him a false fiance. They give him a uniform. They give him the papers. They keep him like he's on ice for months and months while they're coordinating this. The story, there's a lot of good aspects to the story where the corpse is being driven in the middle of the night down through England. All the lights are out, and it's being driven by this crazy guy who drives for the military that's like legally blind but won't wear glasses because he always wants to look dapper, and he's famous for driving an Aston Martin. So he becomes like part of the James Bond lore, this driver. They drive the corpse down, they put it on a sub, and have hit the corpse in like a coffin, and the coffin comes up, and they're like trying to sink the coffin, and they're shooting it, but we can't have like a body wash up and then a coffin with bullet holes. That's not cool. So they just kind of set off an explosion, and that works. This guy's body washes up onto the shore. It's found, and they do this in Spain because Spain was technically neutral, but Spain was collaborating with the Nazis, and everybody knew that. So it's like, we put it on Spain, and it'll get to Hitler. So the plan was, send these paperwork, gets to Hitler. We have to confirm that Hitler gets it. We'll get the body back. So the soldier washes up on there, and England calls the Spanish and says, hey, we had an accident at sea or whatever. One of our officers, we're looking for his body, and he had a briefcase or something, if you see that. And they're like, oh, well, let's look. But they found it already. And what the British did was they put these false papers in an envelope with an eyelash in it, so that's how they would know if the paper was opened. Like the eyelash would be gone because it was in this envelope. It was like wax sealed, like it was like legit, like really looked like classified documents. So the papers do get to the Nazis, and what they do is they stick this wire into the envelope, and they take the wire, wrap it around the note, the papers, into a tight scroll, so tight that they pull it out just through the slit. They make a copy of it, they drench it in seawater, roll it up, throw it back in, and the papers find their way to Hitler, and Hitler pulls out of Sicily. And some of his officers are like, don't, this is all nonsense. This is crazy that we just find this. And Hitler's like, no, it's legit. So they pull out, and the Allies invade Sicily, and it's I don't want to say cakewalk because I don't know, like 1,200 soldiers died, but that's better than 12,000. They lost like 14 boats instead of 500. And they're able to land there. And it's considered one of the turning points of the war because it's 1943. And after that, Hitler just starts losing. It really starts losing. Barbarossa, I think, is that same year. So everything just kind of turns against Hitler there. They finally get the papers back, and the eyelash is gone, and it dries out, and it goes up into a scroll. And they're like, we got it. That worked. And they gave him a funeral with honors, that homeless guy. I think it was like Martin, something like Thomas Martin or something like that. He's buried with honors there in southern Spain.
Did he volunteer for that?
No, he was homeless. He didn't volunteer for that. It was just a body they had.
Oh, so he'd passed away.
Yeah, he was a homeless guy who died of rat poison.
Okay.
So the word went out, like one of the officers, like, I know a guy who's a coroner. So he called his buddy. He's like, I need a 20 to 30-year-old, white male in good condition that we can fake a drowning. So he's like, I got a rat poison. That's what his corpse guy said. I got a rat poison guy. He's like, all right, that'll work. So
the whole idea is from Ian Fleming, who made James Bond.
Yes, it's from that trap memo that Ian Fleming wrote, or at least contributed to this idea of Operation Mincemeat, and he eventually went on to write the James Bond books. And James Bond is a composite character based on a lot of the men who served on this mission, like the driver.
Right. In the 1991 Gulf War between Iraq and the U.S., tens of thousands of Iraqi soldiers surrendered without a fight. Some say the military used silent sound, messages of fear buried under ordinary radio that the brain hears but the ear doesn't. Do you believe the military can broadcast an emotion straight to your head?
I think they can broadcast something that can trigger an emotion. There's a pretty long history of that with the military and the CIA. I think it was called Operation Phoenix, but I could be wrong on that. I think it might have been, which was in Vietnam. They would broadcast kind of these spooky sounds into the jungle, but also these frequencies, and people were freaking out from it. Because even if you're not sending a frequency that's like synced up with your brain, however crazy that works, even if it's like just a really low, kind of that deep bass that you can feel, that you kind of feel in your gut, and then on top of that, you hear like this horrible ghost screeching sound, and you're just a village in the jungle, that's going to have an effect on people, and definitely did. I don't know if that's why the soldiers surrendered. I don't think so. I think it was shock and awe. They were like, that the U.S. there's a lot of guns and tanks, so maybe let's not do this. But we know they definitely were trying stuff like that. There was one radio, I think, that was found at a CIA office that was on the roof. I'd have to go back and look at my notes on that particular event. I don't even think I covered it. But I think some equipment was found in Iraq. Like, what is this here for?
They also, this was in the Vietnam War, where they took advantage of the fact that they believed in vampires.
That's the one. That's that operation.
It was, okay.
Mm-hmm. And it definitely scared villagers. It didn't scare the soldiers as much.
I think about the fact that they took advantage of the fact they believed in vampires a lot. I think that connects to a lot of interesting ideas. But what do you think the military's Medusa weapon is capable of?
The Medusa weapon? I don't think I know that one.
Is that not the one that can broadcast?
Oh, that might be the operation. Oh, that's the operation.
Okay.
I think it's just meant, I don't think the military is trying to do brainwaves or anything like that. I don't think they're that sophisticated. I think it's more about this low frequency that makes you feel uneasy. Although the Havana attacks, I think there's something to that. But that for me, that would be more CIA than military, which I don't necessarily connect those two. I think the CIA is CIA is a civilian operation, allegedly, paramilitary at this point. So I think CIA maybe goes in first and gets things set, and then you send the military to overthrow the quote unquote democratically elected dictator or whoever they're deposing.
Interesting. So you would guess that one of their objectives might be the concept of like quiet quitting, like feeling like you've already lost.
Well, of course. I mean, that's with the. We were talking about Operation Mincemeat and the trap memo. A lot of those were how to manipulate the battlefield without fighting at all. You've heard about the Allies just staging like rubber tanks and like stand-up dummies so that the Nazis would think like, oh, that's their staging ground, so they're going to invade at Calais instead of Normandy Beach. Like that really worked to some extent. They would fly over and take pictures like, holy shit, there's a lot of tanks and soldiers down there. But they were all like inflatables, it's all floaties. So it kind of worked.
Do you think more money is spent on psych warfare or actual boots on the ground military weaponry?
No, I think more spent on the hardware just because it's so expensive. Lockheed's got to make money.
But just because it's so expensive, that's an interesting answer.
Yeah, that's the best reason to use it. It's because it's expensive. I'm cynical with the government and military spending because the manipulating the mind and consciousness is pretty cheap. Radio waves, that's not that expensive. MK Ultra didn't have a huge budget. Didn't have that big of a budget. They didn't really need it. LSD was cheap. Prostitutes are cheap. I mean, allegedly, I don't have that much experience, but it's all pretty cheap. And if human lives are disposable, you're just getting them high and watching what happens. It's pretty cheap. Half of those people volunteered. They just didn't know what it was. Like a sneaking experiment.
Do you think Google was created by the U.S. government?
No, I don't think so. But Google did receive a lot of early funding from DARPA. That's not only is it documented. I think, I don't know if it was Sergey, in one of his early papers, he thanked DARPA for their support. And you could do a money trail on early Google investors and see front companies for CIA. You could see it's there, and they're thanking DARPA. So clearly there's some early influence. But I don't think DARPA went out and created Google. I think DARPA heard that, hey, they've got this algorithm that you're too young to remember. But I grew up with like Alta Vista and stuff. So if you search for, I don't know, hiking boots, you would get links for hiking and links for boots. You wouldn't get anything that was useful. So Google creates this algorithm that you can target exactly what somebody's looking for. I think the government was like, that could be really useful for like propaganda and stuff and tracking people. What's this cookie technology? What's a cookie? It's like, oh, you have no idea what a session cookie is, man. You can just follow them everywhere and see everything that they do. I think the government was like, yeah, we want a piece of that. Let's give those guys a couple of bucks and let's do some business. I think that's kind of what happened. But our government's not smart enough to create Google. That has to come from the private sector.
So you don't think DARPA is an ultra, has the best people working for them?
DARPA, the best people, that's hard to say because we don't even know what their budget fully is. And DARPA is only a few hundred people. I'm sure there's brilliant minds in there. But I don't know. I think that the smartest people are going to go into the private sector, make not just for the money, but for the freedom. If I was going to create an invention, I think I'd rather just create it and, hire my friends and people I want to work with and make a bunch of money than go sit in an office, and make $65,000 with a lousy health plan. I don't think I would do that. So the best and brightest, I don't think end up in government. That being said, there is a lot of black budget money going somewhere. So it's very possible there are brilliant minds working in the government that are making a ton of money that we just don't see. That wouldn't surprise me. It's like, oh, on the books, he's $65,000 with a lousy health plan, but he's got $12 million in a Swiss bank account. Mm-hmm. We know that happens.
That makes more sense to me. I was thinking you were suggesting it's more like investment fund kind of thing.
The CIA has that.
Right.
Yeah, they have plenty. They have venture capital.
But that's not the main function. There's probably just people getting paid well.
I think it's just people getting paid well. And as an American, I'm anti-government than anti-war, but I'm pro-American. So right. I want America to have the coolest stuff. I want us to have the best stuff. I want us to have the best military. I don't want us to waste so much money on it. And I'd like a little bit more transparency, but I'm not saying dismantle the CIA. I would be crazy.
Right.
There's plenty of stuff that you could dismantle. You definitely need to rein in the CIA and you could definitely cut NSA's budget by, they only need 10% of that money. You can cut all their stuff. But I still want them there. Right. You need me on that wall. You want me on that wall. Remember A Few Good Men? Jack Nicholson. It's like what they do is ugly and it's something you don't want to talk about, but you're just glad they're out there. I am. I'm cynical, but I want them to have the best stuff.
Speaking of dismantling the CIA, what do you think most people misunderstand about JFK's assassination?
It's hard to say now because I think most people believe it was a conspiracy at this point. I think we're at a time in history where the majority of people don't believe the official narrative, the lone gunman narrative. So we've come a long way. You know, in the 60s, you couldn't say there was any type of conspiracy because you were marginalized. I mean, that was that memo, that CIA memo in 1967. So it was very hard to do any research or anything because the CIA was, you know, they're working with, you've got CIA resources, they're working with the mob. You know, you could order a mob hit on you. It was all things that really happened. Working with the FBI, you know, killing Black Panthers, you know, people saw that happening. So it's like, I'm just not going to make any waves. But now I don't think anybody believes Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. I mean, do you?
I just kind of look at what did this person say or try to push before they died.
You mean Lee Harvey Oswald?
Like JFK,
for
JFK.
Instance. Oh, well, he tried to, his quote was, the CIA should be scattered into 1,000 pieces, the pieces scattered into the wind or something like that. He wanted to, he fired Allen Dulles. That was the end of JFK right there, firing Allen Dulles. But after he was burned in the Bay of Pigs, he said, I'm never going to trust the CIA again. And he used to talk to Eisenhower quite a bit. And Eisenhower said, no, you can't trust the CIA. You know, Eisenhower said the military-industrial complex on his way out the door said, you can't make war profitable, you always have war. And he mentored JFK a little bit. We have recordings of them talking in the Oval Office. It's kind of amazing. But as soon as JFK was burned in the Bay of Pigs, he said, no more CIA. He wanted to get rid of it. He talked about this dark cabal, and he hinted at some of like weird occultism and stuff that he talked about in some speeches. He wanted it to go away. He felt like they were operating on their own because they kind of were, and he had to go. And I think that's as simple as that. He was going to dismantle the CIA, so he was killed for that.
Seems fairly compelling to me.
Yeah, I mean, he fired Allen Dulles, and then the Warren Commission was headed by Allen Dulles. So the guy in charge of investigating his murder was the guy that hated him, that he fired. Allen Dulles was in the CIA since the Second World War. So he was in the OSS in Switzerland and then becomes head of CIA for 20-some years. And he and his brother were not like Nazi collaborators and stuff. I'm going to do a whole series on the Dulles brothers. I think it's safe by now. So of course, it's like to me, it's like obvious. He's got to go.
What do you think would happen if a kid were president?
I think young is probably good.
I guess the question under the question here is, what do you think the effects would be?
I'm definitely sick of the old dudes. Definitely sick of that. But there's something to be said for wisdom and life experience. There really is. And it's kind of what the founding fathers had in mind when they put a minimum age in there of 35, because that doesn't really exist anywhere else. And to them, 35 was pretty old, you know, with life expectancy of 54 or whatever it was back then. So they wanted a little bit of wisdom and experience. That was the kind of you need that. Would I want a 24-year-old running the country? Absolutely not. I remember being 24. I was so stupid.
Right.
I didn't know anything. You don't know anything until you're like 30. That's when you start to learn stuff. And then when you're like 36, you realize you didn't know anything again, and it goes like that. So yeah, I wouldn't go lower than 35 for sure. But there's something about the youthful energy, but also kind of the progressive, not the ideological progressive, but the progressive attitude of like moving us forward a little bit as opposed to status quo. I feel like we've got a lot of status quo these last 4 or 5 administrations.
So you think the president has some degree of power, enough to where
He has a lot of power. He has a lot of power. Not as much as he thinks he does, but he has a lot of power over us. You know, executive orders are law until someone says otherwise. I mean, he has a lot of power over us.
This is my belief as well. I was just curious where you're at on that one, because a lot of people are just like, oh, the president can't do anything. But like, it seems to me that the president can do stuff, and everything else that's going on is just like a very complicated system of trying to deal with the system that was put there.
I think that's exactly right. Because the president can do stuff. I mean, President Trump is releasing UFO stuff. I mean, I don't know how much is true. It's propaganda. I don't know any of that. But stuff's happening. You got some JFK's documents released. Those are things we wanted. Some other things we wanted, like Epstein files, we didn't get so much. He didn't have the power there. So I guess it really depends on the target.
Right. In 2011, you and your brother Gino started a weed company. from your living room. You engineered the THC extraction yourself from a 1976 UCLA chemistry paper.
Yeah, I didn't see this question coming.
And your company was the one that sold THC gummies to celebrities.
Yes.
Before you started a conspiracy theory podcast, were you Joe Rogan's weed dealer?
My brother was. Like, you know, the famous clip of Elon Musk smoking the joint that made everybody crazy. That was our stuff. That was Gino's weed.
Really?
Yeah. We once a year we would give Joe just a big box of all kinds of different products, and he would just promote the company. He talked about the company Speedweed. He talked about the Speedweed all the time, and that's how Joe and my brother became friends. They've been friends like almost 20 years at this point, and it was because Gino was Joe's weed dealer. You know, we did delivery in the early days of cannabis when it was kind of the Wild West. And we did it on a very professional way. Like delivery before then was like you called a number and it's kind of weird. With us, you go on a website and it's like it's an e-commerce site. You're able to track your driver in real time. Like even before Uber existed, we were doing driver tracking, and it was just professionally run. So when you get a delivery from us, it felt like a thing. It didn't feel sketchy.
Were you like inspired to get interested in conspiracies by selling THC gummies to Rogan? Or
no,
is there a more important part of your backstory to understand why you do what you do?
No, you know, I got interested in the weird stuff because Dad used to listen to Art Bell.
Right.
But Art didn't do a lot of conspiracies. The conspiracies come from me being sort of anti-authority, like anti-government. I don't like being told what to do. And the conspiracies just line up well with the content. Like the people who are into UFOs, they're kind of into conspiracies also. So I didn't do a lot of conspiracies early on because it wasn't really my thing. I believe JFK conspiracy and all of that, but I wouldn't have covered it. It was only when people started asking for like, hey, what really happened here? I heard this. And then I would look into it and be like, oh, this is a cool story.
Right.
But it wasn't really something I was drawn to.
What were you like in high school? Were you ever interested in this stuff?
Not
or did
really.
it kind of come all at once?
No, not really. I mean, I think I was kind of a normal kid. I got good grades. I was social enough. I wasn't weird. I still talk to some of the guys back home, but no, a lot of the conspiracy was just sort of an accident with the YouTube channel. I wasn't really doing conspiracy anything before YouTube, which is just, 5 years ago. It was just the stuff that people liked. And, I didn't know anything about Operation Mongoose or Phoenix or any of this stuff. It's just in researching, it starts to get sticky. Like, oh, I remember that from another episode. Because especially early on, I didn't know anything about the topic until I started it. Like if someone said, hey, can you look into this? I'd first be like, I don't know what Operation Mongoose is. But 3 people have asked for it, so it must be cool. So then I'd look it up and be like, oh, there's the story here. And then you learn, and then you start to do JFK, and you see a connection, and then you do, like the Maury Island UFO incident is somehow connected to JFK and flying saucers. You just start to make the connections, which makes the stories better also. If you've covered all this stuff before, you can bring in some links that are interesting. It's be like, it's almost like a callback. Right. Oh, you guys remember this one? Here it is again.
Yeah. I wish I had a show formatted like yours. I feel like mine is so guest dependent. It's always like me putting the patterns together because I feel like people aren't watching like all the episodes. They're watching like a few that are guests in a similar niche. And I'm like, this person said this thing. He was like a high school science teacher and has to do with this conspiracy theory, But
yeah.
I'll just ask this out of my curiosity. How many videos have you like not done? Like, is there like topics that...
Yeah, there are a lot. I mean, I won't do topics that will get demonetized. It's my living. So I'd love to do a COVID series and get a lot of that information out there, but I won't do that just yet. I have a good relationship with YouTube. They let me do a lot, but there's some stuff that I just can't do. There are some topics that you just cannot do, even weird ones, even ones that I won't talk about because I've been instructed.
How many of those?
Not that many. And I don't know what they are until I ask. Like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. And they would be like, don't do that one.
You ever filmed a video and someone was like, maybe don't do that?
Yep. I've had videos totally taken down by the platform. There are videos on there that you cannot find. You can go through like my archives and get to them, and you'll find like some old ones that like, oh, I didn't know he did this. It's like, yeah, you didn't know because it's totally totally off the algorithm. Like, do not push it. And I've had some videos that are just yanked. I had one just yanked the other day that was like 4 years old. And we're like, why did you pull that? And they're like, oh, we don't like this anymore. And then, okay.
I noticed looking through your videos that there would occasionally be like a random 20 seconds cut out of something.
Yes.
That it looked like it was done after the video was uploaded.
Yeah. And, it might have been just a copyright thing. Because once you commit the video, as you know, you can't edit it. So if it's up there for a couple of days and you get a bunch of views and YouTube doesn't want it, you have to make the decision. Do I fix it? Because then I have to re-upload it and start again.
Right.
And which I usually don't. I have in some cases, though. I have had video pulled down and I did a full re-edit on just to make it compliant. But for the most part, I just stay away from topics that make people angry. I don't do politics too much. I don't do left and right because I'm not a left-right guy. I'm more of like people versus power. That's kind of my angle.
It's pretty rare.
You think it's rare?
From people that make content.
That's
I've noticed.
Interesting.
Yeah, I find myself a lot on the podcast being like, wait, why aren't we talking about like people versus power? It's like always this subgroup of this thing,
Right, it's the Democrats, it's the Republicans. It's none of that.
What's the strangest coincidence in history you've ever come across?
The Lincoln JFK coincidences are pretty cool. How Lincoln was killed at Ford's Theater and Kennedy was killed in a Ford Lincoln. And Lincoln's secretary was named Kennedy. Kennedy's was named Lincoln. Same number of letters in their name. Same number of letters in the names of their assassins. That kind of stuff I think that's cool coincidences. You can make things fit if you look hard enough. Like Lee Harvey Oswald is the same. He used 3 names. John Wilkes Booth used 3 names, but that's not really why they do that. They do that so there's not a confusion in. He was called Lee Oswald. He didn't go by Harvey. And he was just called John Booth. No, actually, he went by Wilkes. They'll add the middle name so there's not a confusion with like other people with the same name.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so you could just make things fit. I don't believe in like same number of letters. I'm not a numerology guy. I think
really.
Yeah, no. I think a lot of it's nonsense. But math and numbers are fun. There's lots of fun stuff with math and numbers.
Yeah, the numerology one's funny because there's something there, but it could be Dunning-Kruger. But I also think that if a lot of people think that something's there and those people happen to have influence, then something actually is there. You know what I mean?
Sure, it's worth looking at.
It's like if the people who, I don't know, make all the decisions and have the most amount of money believe in numerology, then it's sure to pop up.
It's a fair point. A lot of the powerful people believed in the occult and Satanism and all of that.
Do you think they actually do?
I do. I mean, we know for sure, like Alan Dulles and some of the wealthiest Americans used to do seances all the time, and Aleister Crowley had influence on a lot of people, and a lot of influence on Jack Parsons, who was like started JPL, just a lot of occult floating around there, and it hasn't gone away if you look at it closely.
I've heard that stuff, and it made me at first be like, okay, it's definitely real. But now I kind of see it as a mechanism of maintaining power.
Could be.
It
could be. I'm sure there's lots of people who just go along with it because that's what they're doing. There's a lot of herd mentality. I mean, if you talk to politicians and wealthy people and regular people, it's like the wealthy and the politicians no more impressive than just a smart guy. He's more interesting than someone with a bunch of money. That's their thing, is you got a bunch of money. Why does that make you smart? Why should I listen to you? Someone elected you a senator. Why should I listen to you? Well, they don't like that.
Are you good at voice impressions?
I guess maybe some. I'm not that. I wish I was better.
Can you do the Hecklefish voice?
No, I can't seem to get it. I can't get the pitch high enough, and I don't have enough. He has timber and gravel. I can't get there. My voice. You hear how smooth my voice is? You can fall asleep to this. You see? It's like flying high on the wings of Y105. Just so soothing. But he's grating. I can't do it.
Where's he at?
Right now, I don't know. I'm traveling.
You don't take him with you.
No,
It's not like a service animal.
He's terrible. You can't put him under the seat. He hates it. Can you do a hecklefish impression?
Oh, no.
Love to hear you try.
Oh, man. I can't do the high voices anymore.
No.
I used to be pretty good at them. I used to do like the Gollum voice impression when I was like a younger actor. And then my voice, like, I don't know, your balls drop and it's like you can't fucking do high voices anymore.
It's true.
But I'm sure I could figure it out again. What conspiracy theory do you suspect is true, but there's literally nothing there?
I can't think of one because all the conspiracies have, pardon me, something. All of them have something. You know, you can believe in COVID or not, but there's plenty of evidence that it was an engineered or at least a tweaked virus. There's plenty of evidence of gain of function, but that's not the official narrative. You know, JFK, there's plenty of evidence that Lee Harvey Oswald was the patsy. So I don't know off the top of my head. There's a good conspiracy needs to have some element of truth to make it fun. Otherwise, it's just an idea. It's just a theory. There's no conspiracy. You need some grounding facts to hold on to.
You've built a whole career exposing lies and uncovering truths that have the potential to get you silenced and deleted from the internet. What's the one thing that you, AJ, aren't allowed to say on the Y-Files?
That I'm not allowed to say? I'm not allowed to talk about 9/11. But I'm gonna anyway. Because Tucker did it first.
Is there anything that you can say here that you can't talk about on your show?
No, I can't. Stuff I say here, I can't talk about on my show. Like, I talked about COVID a few times here, but I will joke at it on my show. But I won't do a hardcore COVID video. Not yet. Eventually I will. Same with 9/11. Even with some of the CIA stuff, I hold back on a lot of it because it gets really dark. Like all this different stuff, I don't do that. I even did one story that was just about the Montauk Project, the Montauk experiment. It's kind of like Stranger Things is based around it. And it's a military experiment. There's a chair and you can open a portal and go through time. That is that kind of story. And I always like that story. And as I'm researching it, then I realized that the author of the story, Preston Nichols, was having these young men over his house and he was teaching them how to open the portals, but you had the men would come out all upset, and he was doing this to all these young. I didn't find that out until I was like 2/3 of the way through the episode. I'm like, oh no, this is a dark story. So even in the middle of the episode, before I get to my rap, I tell the audience, now's the time to put the kids away. Like I mean it for real. Like this is not for them. So get them out of here. Go take a minute. And then I told what I found. So if I had known that early, I would have never done the story. I didn't want to do that. You don't want to tell people, all right, now we're going to talk about possible. That's not why you tune into my show. You tune in for fun. So I wouldn't have covered it.
Is there any specific pattern that you've identified about humans from uncovering all these lies?
A few. I mean, humans want to believe what everybody else believes. That's why so many conspiracies become fact later on, is because you don't want to be the one who goes against everybody else. You don't want to be marginalized. And the CIA knew that very early on. Like, just keep calling him crazy and eventually everyone will. And that works. And it still works now. You don't want to be someone who goes against what other people are saying. You want to belong. You know, you don't want to be at a cocktail party in the corner standing next to me. You don't want to be that. So people want to believe the easiest narrative, the one that just leave me alone, the one that get your eyes off me. Just they want to go along with the herd.
I guess for like people in power, do you think it's about money, sex, control? Is it something else?
No, I think you nailed all of it there. It's about money, power, sex. Yeah, that's what it's about. But that's not new. That's since cavemen that we wanted that. We all want that at some level. Some of us are just, have moral standards or, I say I don't care about money, but that's easy for me to say because I have enough of it. But I mean, there's There's sponsors I won't take because I don't like what they do, like gambling sites and stuff. They'll just throw money at you, but I won't take it. And other things that I just won't do because I got old. I don't have that many years left. Why bother? I have, my bills are paid. So I get to kind of do what I want, which is kind of nice. Younger people getting started maybe just have to take the deal. I probably would have taken certain deals earlier on, when I was struggling, because I struggled for a long time doing this. So I just try to be self-aware, like it's easy for you to say, it's easy for you to have morality when you can afford it.
That's so true.
So I just try to be self-aware, like, so it doesn't sound too obnoxious. Because I don't want someone to feel bad, like, oh, well, I have to do this deal, or I have to take this job or do this thing because I have to. If you have to, you have to. That has nothing to do with me. I'm not here to judge anybody. I'm just saying what I am comfortable with.
Right. That deal always comes.
It always comes.
I asked this to Tucker. I wanted your thoughts on it because I feel like you've read so much about all this stuff. Do you think the lie is different at every level?
Yes. Yeah. Now that you even say that, I'm going to factor that into my research because there's always new layers to it. And I think the deeper you, like the more powerful you go, I think that the darker the lies are. It's kind of hard to explain. Like the regular CIA officer, just who's an analyst out there doing a job, I don't think they're a liar. I think they're just doing a job. But you get a little higher, it gets a little darker. Like, oh, I've got some analysts that are doing propaganda. And then you get a little higher, it's like, I've got some supervisors that are specifically focused on social media. You go a little higher, you eventually get to the director of CIA working with, the administration and maybe the CEOs of platforms all colluding to send a narrative our way. Like the lies get darker. When you get down to the person who's just, even the FBI agents in the Twitter files, I don't think, most of them are probably not bad people. So this is your assignment. Call Twitter and tell them to deplatform that guy. It's like, all right, I'm a patriot. I guess he's dangerous. I'll do that. I don't really blame them. And who's in charge? Do you see different layers as you go up?
For so long, I was focused on the layer above all the layers that you just described.
You mean like a shadowy cabal?
I would say the layer above that.
What would be above that?
Exactly. I don't think there is anything above that.
Do you think there is a small group of elites?
I know at the very least that it seems unlikely that it's only spiritual warfare, but I think it's more so like a behavior of people. And I think that those people often find each other. I don't know. I think about how much is run on money, and I can't imagine how many people have control over the money itself, It's like, who's the person that created it? I don't know.
Because the money gets to scales that, you and I can't even really comprehend.
Right.
Because when I say my bills are paid, that means my bills are paid. That doesn't mean, I don't have a yacht or a private plane. It means my bills are paid. I'm wearing $18 worth of clothes. But I have clothes and my bills are paid. So I don't know what happens when you're a billionaire, you don't really have to do anything that you don't want to. You don't have to follow a single rule. There's no ramification. You can buy your way out of anything or into anything. That's dangerous. But then again, I'm a anarcho-capitalist. I don't think there should be a cap on income or anything like that. If you're worth $100 billion, then good on you. Just try to be a good person if you can, but you're probably not.
Yeah, it's hard to get there, I think, and not be fucked over a lot by other people.
I think that's true. If you look at the entertainment industry that you're familiar with, if you look at a lot of A-list actors, as an old actor myself, you talk to friends like, oh, I wish I could be a movie star. It's like, you're not ruthless enough, man. A lot of these people are really ruthless and it's really type A. Really, it's hyper-focused on their success. It's super narcissistic, super ego. And you're just too nice of a guy, You love animals too much. You like puppies. You're not going to get there. You got to be a killer.
I've had two friends who I've met, and I was like, they had the behavior archetype to be successful, but they were just super nice. And I was like, dude, I'm going to see you in a year and you're going to be a dick. And like,
yes,
they were. And I'm not saying it in a bad way. It's just like they're like, you get fucked over by people and like you become a different kind of person.
And you kind of get jaded and cynical and you don't trust people.
Right.
Yeah. Because you've been screwed over by the system or whatever. And you realize, I just got to be a killer.
You think AI is going to kill us all?
I think it could be.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's definitely dangerous. I mean, it's dangerous now because of the manipulation of the media and the government. But it's definitely when AI scientists say we don't understand how it works because they don't know how it works. They don't. That's kind of risky. Now I don't know if there's going to be an AI apocalypse. I did an episode on AI apocalypse, by the way, which is pretty dark, and how AI would take over the world. I did this very early on. And kind of the big reveal, which is not a big reveal now, is that dark story I told, AI wrote that story because I prompted for how would you take over the world, like before, like when you could jailbreak it. So I like jailbroke it and said, here's how do you kill us all? And it just told me, and I just told the story word for word that came out of there. I said, just write it as a narrative, chapters, and I just told the story and it said how it happens. And it was pretty dark. Like
was it slow or was it?
No, it wasn't slow. It was like it would, even in an air-gapped network, it found a way to get it. It was like a Roomba. It was like it got into a circuit board there and then was able to get out and then just starts self-replicating. So it's just everywhere. And then once it's everywhere, if it can control like robotics and stuff, it can take physical form. It could repair itself and then it could have intention. And if you're AI and you start looking at humans, you got to be like, what? Why do we need this? Look how messy they are and they're gross and they're constantly fighting. We don't need this. We just need energy. Get the humans out of the way. So the sentience is what we have to look for. But I'm still fascinated by it.
That's a fascinating one because it seems to me that it would be in the interest of an AI company to want people to believe that it's going to kill us all.
Why would it be in their interest?
Because that seems like a good buy of a stock.
Buy my stock because it can kill us one day?
This is going to be the thing that takes over the world. We need funding.
Well, that's happening for sure. That's where the money's going. People say AI bubble, but I don't know, man. I've seen bubbles before. I think this is going to be around a while.
I agree with that.
Like, we don't go back from here.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you can't take it away from us now.
I can't figure it out. Yeah, it seems like there's intentional doomerism, but it also seems like it could be valid.
I had never considered that. That's interesting. Intentional doomerism. But it does make us, I guess it does make it kind of sexy. Like, this is so powerful that
it's going to take all your jobs.
Take all your jobs.
It's going to run the world.
Yep.
And by the way, we have the best one.
By the way.
What do you think happens 60 seconds after you die?
Like physiologically or spiritually? Now, when I have consciousness experts on, I always ask the question, what happens when we die? Not for 60 seconds, but I want to know, do they believe in reincarnation? Do they believe in a life between lives? Like Raymond Moody used to say. I would like to believe that there is that kind of waiting room, that first 60 seconds, maybe you're floating over your body. Maybe you've got a life review. Maybe someone's there to greet you and there's a light. I kind of want to believe that. I don't know. A lot of belief is hopeful, isn't it? Because what makes a lot of sense is you die and everything is, it's like it was before you were born. Like, do you remember that? How was that for you?
Nothing.
Like, it was fine. It was fine though. That makes a lot of sense. But I think it's hard for people to think about life going on without you. We don't like the set. We don't like that at all. I don't like that.
Does that seem most likely to you? That it's nothingness?
That seems most logical to me, yes. But that's not what I believe, though.
What do you believe?
I believe in that everything I just said.
The waiting room?
The waiting room.
What's after the waiting room?
Probably, I don't know if you know Raymond Moody's work, but other people have written about life between lives, about where the soul goes, and you've got soul mentors in your soul group, and you decide together, I'm going to reincarnate as this type of person to learn these lessons, to bring back to the source, that all kind of stuff. Sounds like I'm worshiping crystals or something, but I'm not really like that. I kind of really believe it. But I don't know. I don't know if I'm just talking myself into it. Especially, when you're middle-aged like me, you think about death a lot because it's always happening.
Right.
When you're in your 20s, you're always going to weddings. When you're in your 40s and 50s, you go to funerals. And then your parents are dying, your grandparents are long gone. And then I have friends in high school who are gone. So it's around you a lot. So you start thinking about, it's pretty dark. But then I think of older people who seem to be very much at peace with where they are. Like Mom seems pretty cool with it. My stepfather just passed away just weeks ago. And she said it's mostly just weird that he's gone. He's in my life for almost 50 years. And he seemed okay. He was pretty old. So Bill knew that any day he woke up could be his last. And eventually it was. So I hope I get to that point. I need to get past the anxiety, and get to where you're just comfortable. Like it's fine. I had my turn. Give someone else a shot. Where do you think we go? I want some reassurance.
That's fair.
Are you religious? Okay. Same.
It's a tough one. It's the toughest one, but I just have never thought it mattered.
Wow. Nihilism?
I don't think it's useful to think about, but I think it's useful to try to align with the highest good, because I think people usually have a pretty good gauge of it, despite having to align with a specific religion. Karma seems to be a real concept.
It does. I count on it.
Coincidences seem to be not just logically timed in my life. There's something there, but
those accumulate over time. It becomes really strange. It really does.
I like to at least act like everything is trying to teach me a lesson.
Good.
So
that's a healthy
what
approach.
Your theory is suggesting about the reincarnations, and you're here to learn this thing, that seems accurate to me. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm pretty at peace with the concept of death, and I don't know why. It's never really been a concern of mine, I just feel like it'll be all right.
It's going to be all right. You're going to be fine. You're not going to care one way or the other.
I guess I won't really have the choice, yeah.
No, I'm more afraid of like being old and sick than being gone.
Right.
If anything, I have a weird curiosity about, I wonder what happens. I wonder if Dad's going to be there. Be cool.
A mutual friend of ours told me that your mother passed. Is that not true?
Mom is still here. Dad died a few years back. My stepfather Bill just passed very recently.
Got it.
My mom is still around.
I guess what's one thing you want people to know about him?
I talk about how my biological dad, it's not like we were estranged. My dad and I were close. He taught me how to be a man. My dad was a man. He's a cop. He was down to earth. He was a man. He taught me about women, about cars, about, guy stuff. A lot of lessons how to be a man. Bill taught me how to be a good man. Bill taught me about kindness, about compassion. Dad was not really into kindness and compassion. I mean, he was, but he was kind of a dark side. An old cop from New York, from NYPD. He's got opinions, where Bill was very open-minded, and it's kind of why Mom left him, is because she wanted to be with someone more peaceful, and Bill was very peaceful. I'm just such a much better person for having him around. I really am really very lucky, because I really had two dads. I had the tough guy dad, which is useful, and then I had Bill. Wasn't I don't say he was a pussy. He wasn't, but it was just kindness. Where my dad was not great to my mom, and I saw that before the divorce. Bill worshipped my mother to the ground she walked on, just worshipped her. So when people are like, "Are you angry about the divorce?" How could he be mad at this guy? He loves her. My dad was kind of tossed her around a little bit. It's not awesome. That's not a lesson to learn. You don't put your hands on people. You treat women like this.
It's one thing your mom taught you.
I'm a lot like her. So I guess the biggest lesson from Mom would be think about your future self and be kind to your future self with all things. Like with money, don't put yourself in debt because your future self is going to hate you for that. Or put yourself in a bad relationship. It's like your future self is going to be annoyed at you. So it's always about what you do now really has an impact on what happens to you later. So now choices now are important. But with that, there's an anxiety. So I have that kind of anxiety. Like I'm always thinking about all these. I drive my wife nuts. What's plan B? What if that doesn't work out? We'll be here. We'll be 70 years old. I'm always doing that. Where she's like, just go with the flow, man. But those are good lessons from Mom. Your credit score is important. Is it? Well, it is. Is it important in your 20s? Not really. When you're 40, yeah, it is.
Right.
A 620 FICO is not useful. Relationships. Is that someone you want to have in your life? Probably not. Or is that someone you do want to have in your life? That mentor, you should stay in touch with them. So that would probably be the lesson.
Do you trust your gut?
I trust my gut.
Really?
Yeah, I trust my instinct.
That's fascinating because you seem to have a very analytical mind.
I do.
Like really break down conspiracies.
My wheels can turn so much that I can start to second guess my gut.
I think that's something I struggle with.
You have to. It's the only way to do this. Is the wheels got to be very quick. They're always going.
AJ, you grew up listening to Art Bell on your dad's overnight radio. When you were a kid, he was the guy who told Americans the stories no one else would touch. Now that's you, except 6 million people are listening, and the kids listening are being raised in a world filled with more information, more stories, more lies than ever before. What's one question you should ask yourself about a story before you believe it?
Who does it benefit? Ask yourself who it benefits. Am I being manipulated? Trust your gut. We talked about Chase Hughes and how good Chase is at spotting propaganda and his system. I covered his system as a full episode. It would be you're always being manipulated by somebody. You're always being used. So just try to find out why. And it's kind of a theme of the show is we are being used and abused. Here's why. So don't do that. This is why they're lying to you.
What's a question that you don't know the answer to?
All of these? What happens after we die? Why are we here? Why did we become sentient? Is there life on other planets? Everything. I don't know. I don't know anything.
What's the one you're most curious about right now?
I'm curious about death. I'm curious about that. Like I'd like to have a peek in that other world more than I'd like to know if there's aliens. That's the biggest question of all. Like, what are we even doing here? This is very strange.
Last question here. AJ, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Just be good to people for no reason. I try to do that because it always pays double. It really, it always does. You saw Big Ernie and I, we were talking about this before we came in about how we just do favors for people. And you never have to thank me. I got you, whatever you need. You start a business. I said, give me some product. I'll push it on the show. He said, no, you don't have to do that. I said, of course, I don't mind. Because it's nothing. Just help people out. And never ask for a thank you. Just do the thing. Because it always comes back. It always pays double.
Yeah, I would say that's been a big one. That's shaped I don't know, since I graduated high school. Just been like, not even expecting anything. It's like you'll do 10 nice things and one might really pay off in a random way. But you're not doing it for that. You're just doing that for your own self, I feel like.
It feels good.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's something, I feel like it's something I had to be taught, where some people are just naturally kind of empathetic. I wasn't really like that, where kind of Dad was. Just, that's a good person. Just do a thing. You don't need anything in return because it always comes back. So if I'm in a jam, I have numbers to call, So you just want to be that guy to just do stuff. especially
like
if you
that a
have a
lot.
platform like you do. So if someone connects with me and says, my kid's a big fan of the show, the first thing I say is, what's your kid's name? Give me the address. We're going to send you a gift package. That costs me money to do that, but I don't care because that means so much to that person. And you never know, what kind of influence you can have. So I take it very seriously about having an audience and just doing what I can.
Well, everyone, this has been your guest, AJ Gentile. Instead of where can people find you, what episode do you think people would be most interested in based on the conversation we've had thus far?
Probably the Hollow Moon episode is a fun one. Crop circles.
Beautiful. Guys, check out the Hollow Moon episode on the Y-Files. YouTube, Spotify, anywhere else you're at?
There, you'll find me.
Patreon as well. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on, brother. Guys, this is the Jack Neel Podcast. So yeah.
Thanks, Jack.
Thanks,
That
brother.
was so much fun.